こ Yahoo! Yippee! I'm back. I'm back! In pog form. Wee! I'm back, you guys. It's been like almost a week that since I've last heard your chat voices. Cause I've been sick, you see. I'm still a little bit sick. Scatter! No, don't scatter. Come back. Come back. I have juicy, nice homework for you guys. Yum yum. Open up. But hello everyone, hello. Yeah, I've been sick for like the past, this is what, day 5 or 6 or something like that. And I'm still like a teensy bit sick, but I don't have like the sore throat that I had on Monday. In fact, I did my vocal warm-ups today, you'll be happy to know. I even did some tongue twisters. You know the one. Unique. Click the wrong. Wait, what is happening? I didn't say my hellos yet, but there's things happening. There's so many things happening. Okay, let's catch up. Let's see who we got here, and then we'll get on with it. Well, we're gonna jump right into the 90s. Totally tubular. Okay, apparently I didn't do enough tongue twisters if I'm tripping over totally tubular. Okay, who do we got here? We got Saribot, our rock. Here we got Matthew, you are first. And Gojikins, you got your sticker. Night Artyom, hello. Hello, welcome. Ghosty, you got your sticker. You guys got your stickers. Let me see. Oh, you guys are getting your stickers. Very nice, very nice. Binka has never been more live. It's true. This is the livest I've ever been. Give me a second. Okay, let's see. And then Mega Bronson, you are in fact first. If you ignore the 5 other people before you. And then people are exploding and setting off bombs as is tradition. I missed you guys. I missed you guys during my sick leave. I missed the explosions. the bomb setting, the trailblazing, if you will. Curses, you got the part of the brain cell to spell explode. We got some mass explosion. Weep softly into lean cuisine. Ah, I kind of miss TV dinners. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I used to love the Swedish meatballs. You know, you're like... What even... Okay, was it lean cuisine? I forgot. I had like Swedish meatballs, and because I don't eat meat anymore, I miss them a lot. But IKEA does have veggie meatballs, and they're pretty bomb. They're pretty bomb, but I do miss like the specific kind of TV dinner that I had back in the 90s, which we're gonna talk about. You like that segue? You like that segue? Anyway, Shiopi, you got your sticker. Nice. And then Peck's cool, hello, thank you for the 17 months. Let's freaking go. Your time has come, indeed. Why is the homework juicy? It's because it's not, I basted it. I basted the homework. I'm sure you guys are gonna like it. The homework is dead bodies? Not yet. I mean, what would give you that idea? You nork yerk! Exactly. You need Unork. I must roll back momentarily to equip a leg. There you go. And then, whoa, Matthew, thank you for the 30 months. I can't believe it's been that long. Maybe find something else Swedish to eat in a ball, like a ball of Swedish fish. You know, I feel like Swedish fish aren't sweet enough. Maybe that's just my opinion. You know, like that one Vine. It's my opinion! Alright, cool. I'm caught up. I'm ready. I hope you guys are ready. I don't have any tracking on today because... Dun, 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 dun. Hello! Look at me. Look. Hello. It's me, Babinka Bear, your local Sun Bear art history teacher and educational streamer. And you caught me in a very 90s time of my life. You caught me in a very Carson DeLosa time of my life. Do you guys like the new biblically accurate Sun Bear? It's like we're back in elementary again. It's true. It's true. It's even nostalgic in the idea of like I'm using ViadoTube Mini again. That's right. There's no movement here to be found. There's no tracking. I'm not moving my head around. I'm looking straight into your face. And the only difference between me right now and me a couple milliseconds ago is that my mouth opens and sometimes I blink. Sometimes I blink. See, like that. Good old VTube. God. Nostalgia at its best. You could have more eyes, to be honest. Eyes on the back of my head. HTTQW5.
Be not afraid.
Whoa. I won't. I won't. Oh, wait. Oh, no. There was a double pancakes situation there. But it's okay. We'll fix it another time. Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois. Why does that sound familiar? Anyway, let's play some 90s music. Let's play some freaking 90s music. It's been a minute. If my Spotify will cooperate with me. There you go. Okay, let's play some... Okay, it's kind of weird. VTube is, like, on a setting where, like, it always has to be, like, on top of every other window. So it's been 1 week since you looked at me. And also Spotify's a little slow. I don't know if it's something with my computer, but anyway, we're gonna go all out 90s. That's right, Celine Dion. Actually, I don't know how many of these I actually... Do I want to listen to this, or do I want to listen to... Here, Genie in a Bottle. There you go. There you go. Wow. Oh, now I'm big. Now I'm big and retro. It's time. Stop all the downloading. I gotta stop all the downloading because Beans needs to make a phone call, and then all he hears when he picks up the phone is beep boop beep beep beep. Oh no, no! There's no desk to hide the legs. Oh no! Where's my teacher's desk? There we go. There we go. We gotta sell the illusions. We gotta sell the illusion. Chest burster. Oh my gosh. You look shiny. I'm feeling pretty shiny, actually. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Let's see, some of the legs. 90s, where's my humongous entertainment games? I love humongous entertainment. I love it. I miss it every day. There we go. Wait, we gotta align the... No! Now the cats! The cats and the legs, they don't go together. Here, let me put the cats down here. There you go. You guys can chill with the cats. I'm gonna chill here with my legs. It's just a burster. The legs came out of my chest. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. But this is what I mean. I missed you guys. I missed you guys. Would you guys believe that I made this model? This one that you see here? Would you believe that I made it in like 45 minutes before the stream started? I had a stroke of inspiration, one might say. Not a stroke of inspiration. Because I was looking into like 90s art styles and such. And I was just inspired. Let's see. Teacher, can we have a face hugger as a class pet? I have been thinking about giving you guys a class pet. I've been considering it. But I don't know. I need to see some good behavior first. Need to see some good behavior before we consider some. Basically, I was thinking of playing like a retro like aquarium game and calling it a class pet, or we could play Pets with a Z. I know I played it before during like the New Year's streams, but I could get you guys a Tamagotchi. That's another one. That's another option. Is it a good thing if we think it's so? It's always a good thing. It's always a good thing. Let's see. I think the monster book from Harry Potter would be a cool pet. Oh my gosh, that's... Now you're making me... Also, I don't think I said hello, Array Struck. Hello. Now you just reminded me of like the PS1. Do you guys remember like the PS1 Harry Potter games? The very polygonal ones? Those were my jam back in the day. Before J.K. Rowling came out as a terrible person, I did marathon a whole bunch of the like Harry Potter games, but they were like retro. Like they were from like the 2000s. They were from the 2000s, and I marathoned a whole bunch. Not all the way, not to the point where, like, because apparently with the video games, there's a point where, like, it just turns into, like, an FPS. You know? But with, like, magic and wands and stuff. Like, it turns into an, I think it's, I forgot like which game it was, but I think that was the point where I'm like, all right, I think we're good here. I think we're good here. I kind of miss the whimsy of like, you know, the first 3 books, like Prisoner of Azkaban, the Sorcerer's Stone instead of the Philosopher's Stone, because there's no philosophy in a Bear America. Why would you ever call something a Philosopher's Stone? But facehuggers love hugs and cuddles. That's true. If we get like if you can find a game with some facehugger like pet action, I'll consider it. Man, how you guys been? Like I said, I haven't streamed in a minute because I've been sick. I had a work event this past weekend, and then right afterwards I got sick. So I feel like I got sick from interacting with a whole bunch of people of the public. And then today I actually I actually did the same because I went out to an event today. It was pretty cool. I can't say too many details just yet, but it was pretty cool. Basically, the infrastructure, the transportation here in Los Pincos is getting a level up. It's getting better, and I'm excited for it. Like, I was on public transpo today, and instead of my usual, like, oh boy, like, we're on public transpo, I was like, oh, this is nice. This is neat. I like this. Sorry, I thought I heard Schnackry meowing, but I think that's a cat outside. But yeah, because of that, I haven't streamed since like last Saturday. And I'm still kind of like on the tail end of things. Occasionally I might need to like clear my throat and stuff like that, but I don't have a sore throat. I did have some fatigue this morning, but I feel like that's not as comparable as to like earlier in the week. Let's see. The fact that the 3rd movie came out at the same time as Van Helsing and the 3rd movie's werewolf looks so anemic in comparison. I vaguely remember Van Helsing. Yeah, was that the one where like the brides of Dracula, they like they could turn into like wing creatures and stuff like that? I just remember like the CGI in that one was like, whoa. Like they were getting into the like grotesque CGI on people level. Right? Yes? Nice. But yeah, like this past couple days, hello folk, hello, you got your sticker. These past few days, these past few days, I've just been like, for the first 2 days when I like got my sore throat, I was like basically bedridden. Like I would log onto the computer for like maybe 10 minutes at a time just to like respond to like work emails and then just send people emails of like, hey, I'm sick, I can't respond to anything, or I'll read through this when I'm like not dying, you know. So I was basically bedridden for 2 days, and I ended up catching up on a lot of things. Well, okay, I say a lot of things, but what I really mean is Digimon. I caught up on Digimon Beat Break. Oh my god, it's Spice Girls, which I really, really want. I was able to do some research Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, actually, yeah, just Wednesday, Thursday, because today I was like really busy. So, but yeah, I was able to get some stuff in there. And huge jacked man was Van Helsing. Yeah, Jack Human, right? I love Jack Human. Oh my god, the PNG. Yeah, it's me. It's your 90s school poster. Funny enough, this does have a, oh jeez, I feel like an air bubble in my nose. Have you guys ever been like, either you have a cold or you're coming off a cold, and it's not even like the like snot like oozing out of your nose, it's when it's like an air bubble, and I feel like that's like the most uncomfortable. That, and like you want to sneeze but you can't, because I've also had that the past couple days, where like I'll be like mid-sentence, mid-conversation, you know, like for a work meeting or something, and then suddenly I have to be like, yeah, so I think you know? Or like imagine that but very extended, where they're like, why is she quieting down? Why is she making that face? Yeah, so I think like the next move is I think the next move is excuse me. And then you just like, I mute, but you still see my camera, and it's like very obviously like an explosive sneeze. Anyway, I should probably stop talking about snot and air bubbles and things like that. But I am happy to say that I am recovering. I'm recovering. I'm on my way to being healthy again. Maybe just in time for Mother's Day, because I did want to drop by my parents' place, but because I feel like most colds, it takes about 5 to 7 days to like fully recover, and Mother's Day would be day 7. So I don't know. And plus, like, my mom also wants to visit like my grandma, and she's getting on in years, so I don't know if I want to risk, you know, potentially infecting, you know, grandmama with like a cold or anything like that. So a part of me is like, oh man, I want to see my fam bam, but I also, like, for the sake of their health, I might just stay home. I might just rot, as the kids say, bedrock, Flintstones. But yeah, that's been on my mind lately. Oh, freaking air bubble. Excuse me. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. That's what I've been up to. Today was actually like the first day in a while that I've like gone outside, gotten myself some vitamin D, you know? Make it just before so you think fast, Grandma. Yeah, it's like, the thing is, it's not a snot bubble that's like coming out of the nose. It's like stuck in the nose. Like, do you guys know what I mean? It's like so uncomfortable. And that's why like my voice has to go that way too, where it's like, oh, my nose is stuffy, you know, like, Okay, for those that don't like those sounds, I'll try my best to not make or to like mute. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the 90s today. I'm excited. We're gonna talk about the 90s because this is the first of our decade studies where I have lived through it. And I think a lot of you are the same, right? I know we do have some young excuse me. The start running your way. Oh, the phone's broken again. Sorry. Yeah, I believe a good handful of the Babinkums are also 90s kids, right? I know we got some youngins. We got some Gen Zs in here as well. I mean, no Gen Alphas, right? No Gen Alphas in here. No. Well, we got some Gen Zs and some Millennials here. So, I know a handful of you might remember the 90s as well. I was barely sentient for the first half of the decade. So I will say that. And then even the latter half of the decade, you know, I was just, you know, being a cub. I wasn't really knowing too much about like politics. I did see certain things on the news, but I didn't quite comprehend the gravity of it. Like, I just knew of certain names, you know, like O.J. Simpson, Monica Lewinsky, stuff like that. But I didn't quite, like, understand, like, you know, like, oh, why am I seeing these people on the news so much? Mostly because, like, as a cub, I was like, I'm not gonna watch the news. That's what my grandpa does. my white step-grandpa. That's what he does. And that's kind of boring. But then again, like, he was okay. I know I've talked about my white step grandpa a couple of times, but Baker remembers Boris Yeltsin. Yeah, he's the guy with like the wine thing on his head, right? Nah, isn't that Khrushchev? Like, yeah, I remember that guy. Surely none of us will be running in the 90s. Surely none of us would have been alive and aware of the 90s, but unaware of much of the outside world. Itchy eyes, problematic eyebrows. There you go. It is Gorbachev. Yeah, Mr. Gorbachev. Tear down this wall. Was he the glasnost guy? I think it started with Khrushchev, right? Because I just remember, like, when we did our 1980s decade study, there was, I think, Khrushchev? Or was it Gorbachev? Either one of those was, like, the glasnost and the perestroika guy. Which, I guess we could like, go ahead and, like, get started with looking at current events. I'm gonna lurk and work on draft 2. Let's freaking go! Good luck. That's all I remember from AP US History. Oh, man, you took AP... A-Push. Did your school call it A-Push? You know, because, like, if you shorten AP US History, it's like APUSH, right? A-Push. Our school, okay, I didn't take A-Push, but, I took AP European History. Now, oh yeah, no, we also had AP US History, but we shortened it to A-Push. Yeah, I also had AP Euro. And I took AP Psych. I don't know why. Didn't like that class. I also took AP Bio. That was a really bad idea. Like, I ended up really liking it, but I didn't do great in it. And I forgot if I told you guys this story, but I only took AP Bio because all of my friends were freaking nerds, and there was an exam to get into AP Bio. So, like, one day they were like, "Oh, Binka, the exam to get into AP Bio is like on this day. Do you wanna come with us and take it and see if you could get into AP Bio?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's what all the cool kids are doing. All the cool kids are taking the exam to see if they can get into AP Bio." So I took it and I was eligible. I was eligible to take AP Bio, and I let that get to my head and be like, "Oh, if I could get into the class, surely I can ace it." So I took it. I did not ace it by a long shot. They tricked you into bio. And what's funny related to that too is the only time I really ditched school, and it wasn't like senior ditch day or like kind of like an empty day where nothing was happening. Because I feel like we all have that, right? Well, okay, I'm just speaking from my experience, but have you guys ever, like, at the very end of the semester, like, it's still technically within the semester, but it's like after graduation, like all the tests, all the standardized tests are done, all the finals are done. There's no like point in like having any like academic classes, but there's still class. So like that's still technically a school day that you have to go to, but nothing's actually happening. So usually the teachers just put like movies on or just let you like play video games or play cards and stuff. So like that, I feel like a lot of people quote unquote ditch that, even though like that's not as big a deal, you know? The only time that I like ditch school and it wasn't one of those days was like for a Saturday class. Like even then, like arguably it doesn't even like count because it was a Saturday study session for AP Bio, and I believe our teacher just never showed up. And like for some reason, like we couldn't exit the regular way, so a bunch of us AP Bio kids jumped the fence to get out. I don't actually remember like the details of like why we did that, but like it was a Saturday class, it was for AP Bio, teacher never showed up, couldn't go out the normal way, so you just saw a whole bunch of nerds like jumping a fence to leave on a Saturday. I only took AP Stats and Calc and failed to both. Oh no. I got a C, but you know, Asian failed. That's exactly what I got in AP Bio. I got a C, but to me that was like a fail, you know? We all went to every class, every one of us. Yeah, especially this class, right? You guys are such dutiful students. You would never ditch. You would never ditch decade study classes, would you? Revenge of the Nerds, exactly. Exactly. That's like one of the only times I actually like ditched a class. I did ditch one class like much later, but it was like so close to the end of the semester that once again, I don't feel like it really counts. So like truthfully, as far as I can remember, I don't think I ever ditched a class before. And I feel like college doesn't count. Cause you're paying for it, you could just like not go, you know? Like, and it's not like the teacher's gonna, well, I guess it depends on your professor, right? Like for some classes, attendance is mandatory. It's part of your grade. But I do feel like college is a little bit different. Harpsichord enjoyer, hello, hello. Just stick to the rivers and the lakes like you used to. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with our decade study. Let's talk about the 90s, shall we? We'll reminisce for those that are fellow 90s kids. Only 90s kids remember this. Only us. Not the people born in the 80s that still experience the 90s. Or anyone older than that. Only 90s kids remember this. Just stick to the rivers and the streams, you're a salmon. I kept going to my college classes after deciding to drop out because I was still part of a group project. Yo, you're a real one, Erase Strock. That's like really admirable. That's the... On behalf of like anyone who's ever been in a really crappy group for a group project, like I thank you for having that like good of a soul Because I probably would not have done that. Did any of y'all have the International Bachelorette program in your school? The International Bachelorette? No. I don't know if we had anything like that. I don't know if we had like exchange students. I feel like we did, but like nothing comes to mind. It sounds vaguely familiar. Like, because a part of me is like, did we actually have it at our school? Or am I just thinking of like when you see exchange students in like TV, you know, like Uter from The Simpsons? Still believe. But I was born in the 80s, the latter half of 1989. I don't think that counts me as not being a 90s kid. I'm sorry, folk. Only 90s kids remember this. Only 90s kids remember this. If you were born in 1989, you don't remember it. There's just a large gap. There's just a large gap for the 90s. But I remember. Lies. No one remembers the 90s other than the 90s kids. I say as someone who was like barely sentient for the first like 3 to 5 years of the 90s. Like, oh, Bika, you're a 90s kid. What happened in 1991? How was the fall of the Berlin? Actually, I think that was 89, but how was the fall of the Soviet Union? just being cub, like me as a cub, just like goo goo gaga. Nikita Khrushchev, Boris Yeltsin. It was like a private school in the public school, and all the classes were essentially pre-AP or AP level. I think I'm familiar with that nowadays as like a charter school that shares a campus with like a public school. I have seen that before, but I've never seen anything quite like that, especially like back in the 90s. I know there was a French girl in my Spanish class that everyone thought was in special ed until like the end of the semester, and she said she's French, and half the class was just like, oh, really? Dang. What if you're only a month away from being born in the 90s? I'm sorry. That no one remembers the 90s other than the 90s kids. I'm sorry. You gotta meet the cutoff. You gotta meet the cutoff. Binka was there in the year of our Lord 1099 during the Crusades. She's a 90s kid. Hey, you guys are making fun of my age again. Still believe. The only effect of the fall of the Soviet Union I felt was when they changed where they said Linka was from in the OP to Captain Planet. Oh my gosh, wait, I never put that together. Captain Planet, he's a hero, gonna take pollution down to 0. I do remember that I did have schools that were low income enough that our maps weren't updated. So I do remember seeing a lot of globes and map that still referred to the Soviet Union as the Soviet Union. And I don't remember how far into my schooling that like I finally saw it change to Russia. Because like I do distinctly remember like looking at maps and being like, oh man, like the Soviet Union's really big, and then like seeing an updated map and being like, what are all these other countries? It's like poor baby Ghosty was so bad at math and science. I think math and science, I feel like I was really into it in elementary, and then I once again let the pride get to my head and thought I was like Bear God's gift to like science and math, and then just got nothing but D's in all my classes, especially in middle school. I was terrified of Captain Planet as a child. That totally wouldn't have anything to do with my home life. Oh no. I remember there are certain oh, thanks Taz Boreal, thank you for the pet. I do remember there are certain episodes of some of my favorite childhood shows that freaked me out, and it made me not want to watch it anymore. I feel like Captain Planet had one where like, wasn't there like an evil Captain Planet? Like, was that, did I imagine that there was like either an evil one or like the actual Captain Planet got like corrupted or something? And I happened to watch that episode and I got like freaked out. And I never wanted to watch it again. And then there was something too with like, do you guys remember Big Bad Beetleborgs? There was I think there was like a similar episode where like, I think like it's any episode where like a good guy gets like possessed or controlled and he fights his friends and they become evil. That like, as a kid, that freaked me out. Like, There was something about it that was just like, no, no, why is he fighting his friends? Why is he evil now? Captain Pollution. Was that a real one? Our English classes were really cool. We got to learning root words. That's really good for English classes. Like, I think I told this story. Oh, Schnackery? I heard Schnackery meow. I think he also agrees about Captain Pollution. Yeah, when I taught English very briefly at that school that I really hated, I remember like I didn't know how to teach literature or English, so I just ended up going into like Latin and Greek root words and trying to kind of coast off of that. But I do feel like that's a good thing for people to learn. Because then like if you don't know a word, if you know the root, you could like take a guess, you know? It wasn't that she was dumb or anything. You could tell she doesn't pick up on social norms because she wasn't from here. Oh, I see. I see. You are like reminding me. I don't remember if this was like middle or high school. I think it was high school. I took dance class and we had one student who I think was Norwegian. Like she even had like a stereotypically like Norwegian name and she like had an accent, but I don't know if she was actually like an exchange student or she was just like a recent immigrant from like Norway or something. But I just remember that was so like, I don't know, out of left field because like out of the many immigrant communities that you see in Los Bencos, like Norwegian wasn't really one of them. So like, I just remember like, I don't know if she was actually like an exchange student or if it was just, you know, she just happened to immigrate like, and then like happened to go to our school, you know? No, but the 3D Johnny Quest was nightmare fuel. Oh my gosh. Captain Pollution was legit his name. The show was that on the nose. Fugubi, hello. When they introduced the Psycho Ranger and Power Rangers. Yeah. Like those kinds of... It was like Big Bad Beetleborgs. There was an episode too of... Oh my god, maybe... I feel like you guys might remember what I'm talking about here. There was a Power Rangers episode. I don't remember which Power Rangers episode it was. But it's... oh my god, when Johnny Young Bosch was one of the Rangers. There was like an episode where he was either possessed or something. And I remember that like scared the crap out of me as a kid. Like, because I think he had like green eyes or something like that. Or like it was some like, if you look at the effect nowadays, it's so corny, right? It's such a like bad like CG effect or something like that. But I don't know why as a kid that like freaked me out. And I like didn't want to watch Power Rangers anymore. I still did. I still did watch Power Rangers after that. I got all the way up to, I want to say Wild Force, or what's the one with Doggy Kruger? That's not Wild Force. That's like the space one, right? I feel like Doggy Kruger might have been the latest. Or was there also like a ninja one where like Tommy was the mentor? Like I forget what's like the latest, but like it was by the time that Power Rangers was already on like ABC Family. I think that's where I like stopped watching. The Beast Wars episode where they introduced Rampage was so cool. Definitely baby's first horror story, but fundamental. I miss Beast Wars. I unfortunately can't remember anything about it other than the fact that like there was a romance between was it Black Arachnia and then was it the white Schnackery? The like snow leopard guy? Question mark? Schnackery, what's up? Oh, what's up? He just gave the cutest meow. Schnackery, what's up? Do you want to... He's not next to the door, so I don't think he wants to leave. Alright, I'm gonna keep on yapping. If he starts scratching at the door, I might have to go let him out. Yeah, I think that's why the French girl threw everyone off too, so now I wonder if we had exchange students. I think we did. This is making me think back. I think we did. I wrote a journal in elementary school about that episode. My parents told me it wasn't a real episode. You have all the DVDs? Oh, let's go. Maybe it was Dino Thunder. Black Arachnia and Silver Bolt. Yeah. Tigatron the White Tiger was with Air Razor. Okay, now I'm like, things are starting to get back to me. But I just remember there were like two characters in Beast Wars that I was like, when a romance developed, I felt like the shipper in me, like blossom, you know? I want to watch Beast Wars again sometime. I don't remember the plot of a single episode, but I watched it all the time because my brother was into it. Yeah, and like, Well, this might be a good segue into our chat today, but the early CGI art is so fascinating. And Schneckery wants to leave. Give me a second. Dance. Wait, this is 90s? I thought this was... Oh, you know what? I associate the song with Napoleon Dynamite, which was 2000s. But the song itself, I believe, is 90s. OTP is Cheetor and Rat Trap. I definitely remember those names. Cheetor and Dinobot. Oh my god, you guys reminded me of Optimus Primal. I wonder if my brother still has that super expensive giant Optimus Primal figure. Oh my gosh, wait. That sounds kind of awesome. It's probably one of those figures that like well, okay, they're Transformers, but I think that was like the cool part is like the transforming figurines. I like when they did it with Digimon too. All right, let's get into our decade study, shall we? Let me see if I can I still want to see chat, so let me go ahead and navigate here. Inferno X is Queen Megatron. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the 90s. Let's talk about the 90s, shall we? I have Depth Charge, Silverbolt, Transmetal, Cheetor, and Rhinox. Oh my gosh, I'm like, this is coming back to me, these names. We're talking about CGI, you can't... Oh my god, Cubics! I have to admit though, I never really watched Cubics. The only time I watched Cubics was because I was too early to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! On Kids WB. And I would like catch the tail end of Cubics and be like, when's Yu-Gi-Oh! Coming on? It's Battle City, or it's like, you know, the last arc where they're in Egypt. But like the CG looked really cool. I had a Greymon that transformed into Metal Greymon. It was awesome. Yeah! I can imagine, right? Because, like, the head opens up and you get, like, the metal, like, head of Metal Greymon. Gosh, so cool. Gen 2 Grimlock, when they had some good metal in them. Ooh, okay. This is making me want to, like, rewatch Beast Wars. That and, what's it called? Reboot. Because me and Beans have been watching like the remastered episodes on YouTube, but I think we either caught up on where that YouTube video stops or we stopped. I don't quite remember. I will get my Transformers and send you pictures of them when I find the box. Yeah, no rush, no pressure, but please do. Okay, I think that is what it is. I think there were only 5 episodes out. Because, like, we watched it and then there was a reason why we stopped. But yeah. Alright, let's talk about the 1990s. Only 90s kids remember the 1990s. For those in Bear America, the thing that kind of like helps root me in the time period is knowing the president of the time, and Bill Clinton was the president for actually most of the 90s. At least, like I said, for when I was sentient. George H.W. was president from like 1990 to 1993, but like most of the decade was Bill Clinton. Let's see. Is actually going to learn the real history. For real. There you go. But yeah, like I said, because I was like kind of barely sentient during this time, a lot of the political stuff obviously went over my head. And a lot of the stuff is just things that I saw on the news when my like step grandpa was like watching things. So this research actually did kind of help me like put into context of like what was happening during that time. So what I wrote here is, and by the way, I basically just use Wikipedia for a lot of this kind of like general broad strokes information about the 90s. But one of the things that people like to highlight is the idea that like this was the post-Cold War era. Berlin Wall had fallen. The USSR had fallen. And this was a time for relative peace. I say relative because there were still wars during this time, but like compared to kind of the anxieties of like the Cold War and like the outright, you know, warfare of like World Wars 1 and 2, this was like relatively peaceful for a lot of Western countries. But yeah, the Soviet Union fell. And then there was a spread of widespread capitalism, and especially the US as the sole superpower. In terms of world politics, here's what was going on at the time. So there was actually a bombing of the World Trade Center, but that isn't to be confused with the 9/11 attacks that would happen almost a decade later. However, I was barely sentient during this time, so like I didn't know that they were happening, but this was one of the these incidents where people were starting to get a little bit anxious about the idea of like domestic terrorism, or like things happening on US soil. But yeah, in the US you had so the Monica Lewinsky and the O.J. Simpson trial, the van incident. So Lewinsky and O.J. Simpson, I do remember seeing those on the news, but once again, not really like comprehending what was happening, just seeing these two names a lot on the news. So for those that don't know, O.J. Simpson was a American football player, and he basically was accused of murdering, I believe, his girlfriend, right? Girlfriend, and then like the girlfriend's like partner at the time, or something like that. And it was like widely publicized. It was like a widely publicized like trial, because it's like this famous, football player. But also it kind of goes into a lot of the race relations at the time as well, of like, just as like what's kind of happening nowadays is that like police would, inordinately target Black and brown people. So this kind of played into that, but like as a lot of people kind of almost joke about nowadays, like it's very likely that he did it, like he was eventually like, the jury found him innocent, but like it's very much like almost memed on at this point that like, yeah, he did it. He killed those people, and he like essentially like got away with it. And there was this famous moment where he had tried on these gloves that were purported to be like the gloves that the killer had used, but the gloves were very tight on him. So the glove didn't fit, and his lawyer had something to the effect of like, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. As in like, the glove doesn't fit him, so, it can't be his. He wasn't the one that actually killed those people. OJ also had an acting career. Oh, I didn't know that part. He played Nordberg in the Naked Gun movies. I remember watching part of the OJ trial live in our school media center as an elementary schooler. Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I think because, when was the trial? It was like 94, 96, right? I actually didn't write down the date here, but I think, you know what? I wouldn't have been in school at that time, I want to say. Also, hello, Battle Crackers. Hello. Excuse me. Yeah, for those coming in, I'm still recovering from a cold, so sometimes you might hear me sniffle. Millennial Idol, hello. Could we call it the Clinton scandal? He was the one in position of power. No, for real though, for real. That is a great point, because everyone calls it the Lewinsky scandal, even though like she was like kind of ultimately a victim in all of this. We were too young, methinks. Yeah, I think so, because I just remember seeing it on the news. So I don't think I was in school at the moment. I just don't remember like what year this was happening. Though it says here like 1999 for the Lewinsky scandal, or sorry, the Clinton scandal. But yeah, for those that don't know this scandal, basically the president at the time, Bill Clinton, had essentially like sexually harassed an intern, Monica Lewinsky, at the White House. And it wasn't even that wasn't even kind of like the big thing with this scandal. It's the fact that Bill Clinton lied about it under oath. There's even like the famous quote of like, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And that was basically like, he lied under oath. And that was like kind of grounds for impeachment. And I believe he was impeached, but not like kicked out of office. Is that correct? I kind of forgot. I was too young for it, to be fair. Yeah. OJ was the only one who tried putting the glove on his hand. It's easy to pretend a glove doesn't fit. Yeah. There's actually like a lot of factors. For one, like the glove had also shrunk because it was like kind of soaked in blood. I think it was also like temperature, and then he also kind of like made a whole show of it being like, it doesn't fit. There was a bunch of mishandling in the investigation. Yeah. OJ was 95. Oh yeah, so I was like 4 years old. I was 4 years old at the time. I wouldn't have been like in school, or maybe my mom keeps saying that she put me in preschool at 3 years old, but that doesn't quite match up like timeline wise, unless I was in preschool for like 2 years. But maybe I was. I don't know. Yeah, exactly, Mega Bronson. He was impeached, but he wasn't removed. Yeah. There were different times. The days when that's all it took to get impeached. Yeah. This is Chewbacca. Chewbacca is a Wookiee. Good evening, George. So yeah, those were two big things that were happening in the 90s. Very widely publicized incidents that were happening at the time. What else? Yeah, in the rest of the world, there was also the dissolution of the USSR. And then from the Soviet Union came, for one, Russia. That's kind of like the successor state to the USSR. But also all the other countries and cultures that were kind of like absorbed in the USSR, including Belarus, Ukraine, Moldavia, the Baltics, which is Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, the Caucasus, which is Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, where Beads is from. Excuse me. And then the German reunification after the fall of the Berlin Wall, formation of the EU, and in the UK, we had the resignation of Margaret Thatcher. So in the US, we got rid of one devil. And then in the UK, they also got rid of one devil. And the subsequent election of Tony Blair. But also, unfortunately, another kind of like big thing that happened during this time was the death of Princess Diana. So once again, like, I didn't know too much about her other than the fact that she had passed away. But she, for those who don't know, she was married to one of the princes at the time, the now current King Charles. Unfortunately, didn't stop Reagan, yeah. Yes, the death. But yeah, she was the wife to then Prince Charles. But she, as far as I don't know too much about like royal family stuff, but like he cheated on her, they divorced. Did they legally divorce? I actually don't know. Because I know that he's now with, what is it, Camilla? Or he's been with Camilla. I think that was probably like the person that he cheated on her with. But she had passed away in a car accident with her partner at the time. Oh, they were both cheating at the time. That I didn't know. I see. Because I was looking into this, I did start getting like videos of that series The Crown on my feed, on my YouTube algorithm. And I didn't know that Matt Smith plays Prince Philip. And he's kind of scary in it. And like, I was watching scenes of like, oh, what happened after like Diana's death, and also JFK's death. Dude, did you guys know that in The Crown, they got the guy who plays Dexter, like Murderer Dexter, not Dexter's Laboratory, but like Murderer Dexter. He plays JFK in The Crown. Mark C. Hall plays JFK. I don't know. That was just so random to me because I personally feel like he doesn't look like JFK, but the acting's not bad. I didn't know anything about her, but it was a huge thing when she passed. Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think it was also because, like, in addition to being part of the royal family, or, like, she married into the royal family, like, I think a lot of people considered her, like, a huge, like, fashion trendsetter as well. She was, like, I don't know, kind of, like, the icon for, like, that time period. So it was almost like a royal celebrity also passing away. It'd be like if, like, I don't know, Meghan Markle or something, like, had passed away. They divorced, cause creating a new church has been overdone. Exactly. I remember this because Princess Diana Beanie Baby was one of the most expensive. Yeah. What a 90s phrase, right? The Princess Diana Beanie Baby. So yeah, that had happened. Let's see. The Oslo Accords. So this, I remember seeing this picture all the time when I was like studying history in high school. And like when it gets to like contemporary things, it's like, oh, this was kind of like the biggest thing back when I was like in high school in like the 2000s, late 2000s. And I remember seeing this, but I feel like by the time we got to like contemporary things, people were already kind of checked out. Like, I feel like once, like, if you're like teaching US history and you get like anytime kind of past like the Cold War, I feel like by that point, everyone's kind of checked out. Because I saw this picture all the time in my textbooks, but I didn't know the context. And it really wouldn't be till much later that I really understood like how big this was. So this was the Oslo Accords, where basically like it was a pause to the conflicts in Gaza. It was a pause like in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And it was like a big deal because that was like, you know, it was like paving the way to like the end of the conflict. But unfortunately, as we see nowadays, that didn't come to pass. But like when I read this, I was like, what the heck? Like that was the context? That's insane. Also, the limo driver was intoxicated and trying to drive aggressively to avoid... Oh, paparazzi! So that's the story. Today would have been Princess Diana Labubu. It really would have been. I think so. I think so. I never had a US history class actually make it to contemporary events with more than a week left in the school year. Exactly, folk, exactly. Like, I feel like other schools might be different, especially outside of Bear America, but like, once it got to contemporary, everyone's like, checked out. So, like, I feel like we barely, like, even talked about the Cold War that much, you know? Like, I feel like people know the quote that, like, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Like, that. And then I guess the whole thing with HW, what is it? He, like, vomited in the lap of the Japanese emperor. And I feel like I only know that because, like, I think The Simpsons made fun of it or something like that. But, yeah, like, I didn't know a lot about, like, contemporary stuff for a while. We never touched anything more recent than the JFK assassination in Texas. Yeah, there you go, right? One of the best moments was someone throwing a shoe at Bush. Yes, okay, yeah, that's another one that I, like, remember. Like, I remember living through because, like, that was, like... I don't want to say early meme culture, but I do remember, like, that video being remixed into, like, memes. And, like, have you guys ever actually watched the video of, like, the guy throwing the shoe at Bush? Because, W. Bush, by the way. Because, like... He almost, like, has, like, a hint of a smile on his face. Like, did you... I think he, like, thought it was a joke or something. Like, I don't know if I'm misremembering it, but I just remember, like, seeing him being, like, did he think it was a joke? Like, I look ahead towards the end of the history book and see more current stuff, but we never cover it. Pretty much always ended with half, but Vietnam-Korea War unit, where some students thought was the same conflict because we talked about them at the same time. Yeah, I could definitely imagine that. He threw both shoes. We never did find those weapons of mass destruction, did we? We just gotta keep on looking. Or no, sorry, mission accomplished. He beat the quick time, exactly. The weapons of mass destruction were the oil we plundered along the way. Exactly. Exactly. I also included the release of Nelson Mandela from prison. And then he had a subsequent presidency in South Africa, and then that also later on marked the end of apartheid there. Now, South African history is something that I'm also very weak in. I actually don't know too much other than the fact that they were colonized by the Dutch, right? Because you have like the Afrikaans people in there. And then I do remember Mandela, but I also know that he's famous for the Mandela effect, in which a lot of people thought that he had died during his prison term in the 80s. Which would have been before his presidency, but he didn't die until much later. Like, was it like 2000s or early 2010s or something like that? And people actually kind of remember this. I remember a lot of people being like, oh, I thought he had died already. Because I was one of those people. Like, I thought that he had died a long time ago, but that was like one of those moments where it's like, no, he was still alive. No mention of the Shawnigan handshake. That one, I don't remember. Also in the 90s. We lost the war on terror. We are now constantly terrified. Joining the war on terror on the side of terror. People swear they saw his funeral televised and everything. Yeah, like, it's interesting because, like, from here, I went into the Wikipedia article on the Mandela effect. And there was, like, a whole bunch of things that, like, everyone always talks about, like, the fruit of the loom. Like having a cornucopia, the Berenstain Bears being called the Berenstein Bears. What's it called? There was one that I was like, I could have sworn I also had that memory. The Kazam with Sinbad. I feel like I also remember that, even though it never actually happened, you know? I'll see if I can find the video and send it to you. Yeah, please, please. It was when our prime minister choked out a guy on stage and flipped him over. Wait. I'm so curious. That sounds like something you'd see on, like, WWE. And here's the Prime Minister! And like the song is the one that's playing right now. Mika, are you from the Berenstein or the Berenstain universe? I'm Berenstein. I'm from the Berenstein universe. I vaguely remember it being Berenstein. I'm from that universe. I'm from the Cornucopia universe. I'm from what else? I'm from the Kazam universe. It happened. I swear it did. I swear it did. Also, we have an ad break coming up. Let me put you guys over in the cub corner. Not my legs. Not my legs just being there. Okay, I don't know how to fix that. I'll see you guys after the ad break. Jean Chrétien was all sorts of fun. You're from the Looney Tunes and Fruit Loops universe. I am. Only legs. A farewell to arms. She killed and hid long leg Binka. No, she's right there. Look above the tomato soup. She's right there. But anyway, I gotta go clear up my nose. So I'll see you guys in a couple minutes after the ad break. Oh yeah. Okay, we're back, and I just watched. Wait, hold on. Let me. Holy crap, Lamau. So, Ghosty just sent me like, a video of the Shanian handshake with Chrétien, the Prime Minister, and that's crazy. My favorite part of the video is where he was like, "Oh, what happened there?" And then Chrétien's just like, "I don't know. What happened? The video's there." It's like that's absolutely insane behavior. Sherwin again. Okay, Sherwin again. Thank you, Gojikins. Thank you. That was just so funny. Like the reaction to like, so what happened there? I don't know what happened. Me after I like suplex somebody. And then let's see, Tom's Diner by Suzanne Vega was that song. Yeah. The only reason I recognize that song is because it was part of a song fic of Gundam Wing. That's kind of awesome. I love that. It's video from 1996, which is great. They still have the archive live. Oh, that's neat. Nice. The Sherwinigan handshake. That's pretty cool. Alright, let's get back into it, shall we? Let's get back into our studies. Oh, I'm just a bear. Okay, let me make sure I can see chat. There we go. Okay, so what else do we have here? The Oslo Accords, release of Nelson Mandela. There were wars. Even though this was like a relatively peaceful time in the West, there were still wars. Back to writing minds for me. Have fun. Thank you, Ghosty, for stopping by. Good luck. Best of luck. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, there were wars in the Congo, Persian Gulf, Chechnya, Yugoslavia, Kosovo, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and more. So there were still things happening across the world. And then outside of politics, there was also a lot of advances in technology. So this was the time of the CD-ROM. I don't know if CD-ROMs were technically like invented during this time, but they were definitely popularized during this time, especially relative to floppy disks, especially back when the floppy disks were actually floppy and then they became smaller and not floppy. But then the big thing was CD-ROMs. Oh yeah, before I get into that, so a couple other like pop culture things too was once again the Oslo Accords, but also especially like prior to the scandal over here, there was also this idea of Bill Clinton being kind of like the like cool, quote unquote cool president, because he had like played saxophone and he played it on like the Arsenio Hall show, and people were kind of jokingly calling him like the first black president before that, and obviously this was before like Barack Obama. So that was interesting because like he I remember like growing up, especially because I hadn't really internalized and like known the context of like, for example, the Lewinsky scandal. To me too, like growing up, he did seem like the quote unquote cool president, right? Especially in comparison to like HW, who kind of seemed like a stick in the mud. But that's just kind of like me as a cub in the 90s growing up, you know? Unflops your disc and more. But yeah, the CD-ROM, DVD, Pentium microprocessor. And then in terms of like OS, you had this familiar Windows 95 OS. Oh my god, the scrub. He was in the animated opening for the Animaniac. The Animaniacs. Love the Simpsons bit where he's playing saxophone and Mo yells at him, "Get to work, Clinton." And oh yeah, and he's like, "Make me." I remember that part too. Scrub is a guy can't get no love from me. Passenger side of his best friend trying to holla at me. Yeah, Windows 95 and 98 were at this time, and then just this OS became a little bit more popular. It was already becoming a thing with like Apple Macintosh back in the 80s, but even more, this was kind of like the familiar like kind of OS of like Windows 95 or operating system. And the 90s is also the beginning of the World Wide Web, you guys. It was the first time that we were all stuck in a wide web of the world together. The internet was a thing going all the way back to, well, arguably like I want to say like the 80s, probably earlier, but like the idea of the internet as we know it, as a space where you can go to different websites and like virtual spaces and visit them and like communicate with one another through things like email. This was definitely like happening during the 90s. Yeah, you could still talk with one another on the internet back in like the 80s, but that was more so academia. Here is when you see things like America Online, where you had to use like dial-up connection in order to, first of all, dial-up connection meant that you couldn't use your phone. So, Mech Warrior on my Windows 95. Yeah, like look at this. Look at these icons. Look at that teal. Look at the everything on here. But yeah, America Online, you couldn't use your phone and people couldn't call you if you were using the internet, because the internet was basically through dial-up telephone. And America Online was kind of like the most popular way to access the internet at the time. Before internet was developed by the military in the 60s. Oh, okay. I was trying to like remember like when was, because I know that like computers were a thing as far back as like the 50s and into the 60s, but I was just trying to remember like when was the internet like a thing? Yeah, get off the internet, I need to call your aunt. Yeah, exactly. Or like my parents would be like, I'm expecting a call, get off the internet. Exactly. And this little picture over here too is kind of like what early email was like. You've been hit by the money truck. Now that you've been hit, you need ! To hit 7 other people with the money truck, including the person who sent you the money truck. The truck without the C. When you do, you'll get mad loot. If you break, not even spelled right. If you break the chain, you'll be broke for 13 years and will never have a good time. So pass it on now. Hit whoever you think wants to be rich. Wants to be rich. Guys, you've been hit by the money truck. Bad. This is more so reminding me of like MySpace, which we'll get to in the 2000s. We'll get to that as well. But I remember like this being a thing in like MySpace where it's like, sorry guys, I didn't want to have to do this, but I'm tagging 5 people and you have to do this because otherwise your mom's gonna die. And the thing is, I love my mom. Like, yeah, like you have to like repost this or RT it or else, you know? Like, I'm sorry guys, I'm doing this because I love my mom, you know? It's like the whole like step on the crack. 10 bit, thank you for the 10 bits, Matthew. Infinite wealth. Thank you. ARPANET, DARPA, Metal Gear taught me that. There you go. Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah, the chain posts. Metal Gear, DARPA, a hind D. Snake. Da, 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 da. I didn't use the internet until maybe I was 9 or 10. I did play Doom when I was 4. Oh, nice. The earliest computer game I can remember playing is Tetris, and I remember it was on like a black and white computer. And I just remember like my dad had like met up with a friend or something, and that friend happened to have a computer. So he like sat me down and was like, here, play with this while I like go talk to my friend. So I was just like, okay. And then me just not understanding the rules of Tetris, just being like, ooh, pretty squares. Wow. Reminds me, I've seen recently the kids today can't fathom the landline home phone. What do you mean the whole family shared a single phone number? And when you answered it could be your dad's boss or your sister's friend and you had no idea. Exactly. I think that was like the beginning of a lot of my like phone anxiety as a kid, was like I never really used the phone that much as a kid. And like, cause like, one thing is I did grow up with like a strict dad, so like of course I couldn't be calling like guys or boys or anything, and because then like he could, that's the thing for those who don't know about landline phones, is like if you're in a conversation with someone and someone else in the household picks up the phone, they can hear the conversation. So like if I was talking to my friends or if I was talking to a guy, then my dad would overhear it and he'd be like, who are you talking to? You should be focusing on your studies, not boys. The good old times where there were no age ratings, literally 1984, and somebody could pick up the other phone and snoop. Exactly, Peg School. They could snoop. Exactly. So yeah, I do remember like I did talk on the phone with some friends in high school, but I feel like it did get easier once you had like a cell phone and a cell phone with caller ID. Caller ID was a big deal back then too, because like yeah, you kind of like couldn't always tell who was calling you. You just had to pick up the phone and hope it was like not a spam caller. Actually, what did we call those back in the day? If not spam caller, was it like junk caller or like I actually forgot the term for it, unless it was spam caller. Maybe it's that phone anxiety that prepared for leaving a gosh darn voicemail. Yeah. Telemarketer. Thank you, Battle Crackers. Yeah, it was a telemarketer. It's like, oh, darn telemarketers. But yeah, I remember I did have like pretty bad phone anxiety, and then like actually I've gotten a lot better recently, especially because like my work does sometimes require me to like make phone calls. So, but I am that kind of person that like needs a script before I like make a phone call. You know, it's the same thing with like ordering food at a restaurant. It's like, all right, I gotta rehearse it in my head. I want the vegan double double, not the double 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 double, but just the double double. Another thing during this time were beepers. Beepers. So my parents had one, but I still don't really know how it works. Like from what I gather, you called someone on their phone and it wouldn't exactly leave a message, but it would leave like oh, this person tried to call you. Right? Is that what that is? Because I do know that you can still leave like numbers as messages, and that's how you got things like was it 147? Is code for I love you? Is that what it was? Yeah, I love like because one, it's like how many letters are in the word. So like 147, one letter for I, 4 letters for love, 7 for no. Wait, what was the 7 for? Because there's 3. Oh no, 143? Was it 143 is I love you? Something like that? Just like me for real. Yeah, I'll be rehearsing like half an hour in advance. Yeah, there was this one time, if we're talking about like ordering food anxiety, I was at like a Mexican restaurant with a bunch of my friends and we were all ordering food. And I remember telling them like, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get like, I don't know, shrimp tacos or something like that. I'm gonna get the shrimp tacos. I'm gonna get the shrimp tacos. I'm gonna get the shrimp tacos. And then I'm like rehearsing it in my head as I'm like in line to get it. And then the waitress is like, like, okay, what can I get for you, honey? Like she called me honey and I got flustered because she called me honey. And I ordered something completely different. I don't even remember what it was. And my friends were looking around at me and being like, I thought you said you were gonna get the shrimp tacos. And I was like, yeah, but she called me honey and I panicked. So I didn't get my shrimp tacos, but at least I ordered. My uncle is the type who'd rehearse frantically in advance and completely mess up on the spot. That's what I did! That's what I did. I remember calling a number and telling them I need to leave a message for XXXX number. Tell them call home please. And they would send that message to my dad's pager. Oh, yeah, I know that like calling collect is like the same thing, right? Where it's like, let's say that like you need to get picked up from school or something. And like, but you didn't want to like pay the fee. So you would call collect. And on the other side, the person would get a message that sounds like, you received a call from mom, come pick me up. Do you accept the charges? So I never did it, but I vaguely remember that being a thing. What can I do for you, honey? How do you know my true name? I got flustered. She called me honey or sweetie or something, and I just remember being like, "Oh, I'll have the I'll have the veggie burrito." And then as soon as that leaves my mouth, I'm like, "Damn it! I wanted the shrimp taco." Anyway, I'm gonna enjoy this veggie burrito. But yeah, beepers. They go beep beep. May I ask who was calling? Bob. We had a baby, it's a boy. Can you imagine being like an old person accepting that call and being like, do we know a Bob? A Bob, we had a baby, it's a boy. No, we don't. Anyway, what happened to Margaret? She was having a baby. We want to know the gender. Classic commercial. We had a baby, it's a boy. Anyway, I'm living La Vida Loca. Let's see. Yeah, World Wide Web, e-commerce, web portals, the .com bubble. And then here's something that I only vaguely knew. A lot of the websites that we know nowadays got their start in the 90s. I knew some of these as early as the 2000s, but I didn't know that they were from the 90s. So for example, I do remember using Amazon and eBay as early as the 2000s, because my parents stopped giving me an allowance and I had to sell things in order to get an allowance. GeoCities and Yahoo were the places to go if you were a young manga fan. Because I remember I would read, oh my god, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. I read the manga on a GeoCities site with like, okay, not terrible translations, but like definitely not what you would expect from scanlations. Like I still appreciated that we had scanlations at all, but I just remember like waiting on bated breath and like refreshing these GeoCities, or not even refreshing back then. It was more of like checking once a day to see if there was like a new chapter of like Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. Of course, that was more so in the 2000s, but like yeah, GeoCities, Yahoo, Google and Napster. Yeah, I barely remember what things were like before Google. There was like Ask Jeeves. There were like other like search engines and stuff, but I think back then you were really just on like the America Online. You know what? I kind of want to find the picture of that. America Online. Actually, why am I typing this out when I could just put AOL landing page? This will be walking on the sun. Oh, this is what I remember. There we go. This was like the landing page for like America Online. There were different channels. I would always click on the kids only. So now I'm curious, what was on the kids only page? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, wait, look at this aesthetic, you guys. I kind of remember this, actually. Alta Vista. This font, Music Mania. Wow. Homework help, games. I barely remember like this at all, but what an aesthetic. Yeah, I just remember this, like, I don't really remember, like, having a search engine until, like, Google. But yeah, this is also what Amazon used to look like in the 90s. The Earth's biggest bookstore. Look at that. What an aesthetic, right? Oh yeah, this was also the popularization of email and instant messaging. I, of course, didn't really use it until, like, I want to say like college, arguably, like in the early 2010s, but it was a thing dating back to like the 90s, and I did see a lot of friends use it up into the 2000s as well. But yeah, that was pop culture and technology stuff, not pop culture, sorry, current events, current political events, socioeconomic stuff, and technology. Let's go ahead and move into pop culture, and this is pretty hefty because usually when it comes to like these decade studies, like I just go for whatever is familiar to me out of like the list that I see on Wikipedia. But of course, because I grew up during this time, all of it was very familiar to me. So like this pop culture section is a lot heftier compared to like other like pop culture sections in like the previous decades, just because so much of it is like familiar. So let's just go through the list. Let me catch up on chat first. Still remember when I collected Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard cards? Selling them online to TCG player parents were concerned I was concerned that I was getting money from selling stuff. But you should, but I showed them how I got the money since they were mostly never gave me or sibling took it. Okay. They learned that that he's doing okay. Okay. But yeah, like I just remember like I would sell things on Amazon and eBay back when like my parents were like, okay, no more allowance. You're an adult now. So yeah, let's just go ahead and go through the list and then we'll like stop and like talk about all of it. But The rising generation of the time was Gen X. Even though we talk about the millennials and stuff, this is when a lot of millennials were born and like kind of barely sentient. They're called the millennials because a lot of their formative years were more so during the new millennium. Because your legs are so long. Hello, Dub Beetle. Hello. They are pretty long, aren't they? Also, do you like my new model? My retro model. It is new, but it is also retro. There we go. Look, I have another set of legs. Ignore the ones on the desk right now. Oh, no worries, Fagooby. I got the gist of what you were trying to say. Good old online selling and stuff. Oh, give me a second. We had to open the window because it's getting like warm in here, but there's also lots of people like yelling outside. So yeah, everything old is new again. Exactly. So if you guys hear random voices in the background, that's the explanation for that. But yeah, so millennials are known as millennials because a lot of their formative years were during the new millennium. Even though I was born during the 90s, this was actually the decade of Gen X. So this is actually arguably like my parents' generation. Gotta bounce, have a lovely stream. Gojikins, thank you for dropping by. I always appreciate you. Kids with the battle cry, exactly. I can see you being a McDonald's toy. Yay, that's the nicest thing the Cubs have ever said to me. I would love to be a McDonald's toy. You heard the meow? Was that Schnackery? No, that was a... I don't think Schnackery's in the room. That was kids outside yelling and stuff. But yeah, so Gen X, and then we're gonna see this too when we talk about like aesthetics and art movements, but multiculturalism, globalization, and environmentalism were kind of like the big themes of the decade. Increasing acceptance of, homosexuality in the Western world alongside the rise of third wave feminism. And then in terms of music, some popular, this isn't all of them. Captain Planet. I didn't include Captain Planet on here. There was so much to include. There were so many times where I'm like, oh my god, that's right, this, you know? But yeah, environmentalism, Captain Planet, there was a lot of like, like attempts to like educate the youth in things like environmentalism and like multiculturalism. I mean, like Captain Planet is also a great example because not only is it like overtly about environmentalism, but the cast was also very multicultural. So yeah, music, some popular genres of the time were grunge and alt-rock, including Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins. Every time I think of Smashing Pumpkins, I think of the Simpsons joke where it's like, I'm this person, Smashing Pumpkins. I'm Homer Simpson, smiling politely. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Also, hip-hop continued to be very popular during this time, but this was also the beginning of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry between Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G., as well as other rappers as well. But Nas and Jay-Z, I would also argue Snoop Dogg was also getting more popular during this time as well. And then you also had the beginning of boy bands and girl group pop music. And I also thought this was around the time of Britney Spears, but I feel like she was more so like late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, because I was like making this list and I was like, wait, Britney Spears and like, I was gonna say Shakira, Notorious Bink. But you did see the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Boyz II Men, Spice Girl, TLC, Destiny's Child. I remember all of these. I very specifically remember there was a candy in the US. I just remember this in like late elementary school. So this might have actually been like early 2000s. But it was like either a lollipop with like gum in the middle, but in the wrapper was a sticker for like either the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC or like Britney or Christina Aguilera and like folks like that. I just remember like that being a thing in like elementary school. Let me see if I have any pictures of any of these folks. Oh, here we go. We got Nirvana. We got Tupac and Biggie. They also, I believe both of them also, I know that he for sure died in the 90s. I think Biggie also died in the 90s as well. They were both, as I recall, shot, right? But yeah, both of their music, by the way, sick as hell. In fact, no wait, it's Michael Jackson. I can't interrupt Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. Nirvana. We have Destiny's Child, which, if you guys didn't know, this is also where Beyonce came from. NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and the Spice Girls. I remember as a kid, like you just had to have your favorite Spice Girl. I think mine was Baby Spice, but if I had to choose again nowadays, I would say Scary Spice. I don't know why they call her Scary. I can't believe it took me until now to figure out that Justin Timberlake started with NSYNC. Yeah, he did. He totally did. Look at his freaking like ramen hair. Yeah, like a lot of these familiar faces. Which one is Lance Bass again? AKA the voice of Sephiroth in freaking Kingdom Hearts. But yeah, so my favorite now, Scary Spice. I would say that. Let's see. Yeah, so that was some popular Posh Spice. Okay, can I remember all of their names? There was Baby Spice, Scary Spice, Posh Spice, Sporty Spice, Ginger Spice, right? Those were their not their actual names, but those were their things, right? Backstreet Boys was way more popular in Europe. Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. NSYNC not so much. Okay, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys. I mix them up all the time. In fact, let's listen to some of them. 90s pop. Let's do 90s pop. Oh, Britney Spears is in this playlist, so I need to include Britney. Oh, yeah. Spice Girls and Destiny's Child were huge too. Oh, nice. I love Destiny's Child. And TLC. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Okay, movies. Let's go on to movies. Big ones of the time: Titanic, Jurassic Park, Forrest Gump, Saving Private Ryan, The Matrix, Pulp Fiction, Schindler's List, Silence of the Lambs, Terminator 2, and Men in Black. I feel like a lot of these I didn't actually watch during the 90s, but I watched them when I was like a lot older. Like Pulp Fiction, I watched when I was like in my 20s and 30s. No, actually, I think late 20s. Well, also because like I don't think it would have been appropriate for me to watch some of these back then. But I do remember as a kid watching Titanic. I think it was somehow I was watching it at home. I don't know if they were showing it. It was like years after the movie had premiered, and it was showing like on like basic television. But I remember seeing it, and I was at home, and I remember seeing the part at the end, spoiler alert, where Jack dies. And like I remember crying so hard, and my mom was like why are you crying? It's just a movie. But also like when you're young, that's such a concept, right? So like it's just a movie. He's not really dead. And I just remember being like, no, but he sank, and then now she's old and she's so sad. What? Spoiler alert. Turns out the one true thing about the Matrix was the 1990s being considered the peak of human existence. I agree. The golden age of movies. A lot of these are bangers, right? I just wish that there were more feathers on the dinosaurs, but the idea of dinosaurs having feathers, I feel, wasn't that widespread at that point yet. Okie dokie. Oh yeah, so you'll notice that I left out some animated stuff here, but that's because I'm gonna mention it later on with the animation section. I cried when they killed a guy running for president of Mexico. We went downhill at the end of the 2000s. Arguably, when we do our 2000s decade study, I do feel like, of course, 9/11 is kind of like a big turning point in a lot of ways. TV shows. The big ones, Seinfeld, Friends. Those are kind of the big ones, right? And these are inadvertently like such time capsules of the 90s. Like me and Beans, we actually like rewatch Seinfeld every couple years or so. We actually stopped recently because like we realized that like no matter what episode it is, we're able to like predict what happens essentially. So we stopped, and then neither of us could get into Friends. Like we just couldn't. There was one time, I think during Off-Kai or during one of our vacations, where like it was playing in the hotel, and we were kind of like, okay, I kind of get it, but like even then, we never really got into Friends. Colossio. There's also Frasier, which I never watched because that was like that was too fancy for me. Seinfeld never played on TV where I was. I vaguely remember it actually in the 90s, but me and my partner Beans actually watched it more when it was streaming on things like Netflix. So I feel like that's more of like in retrospect. I do remember Fresh Prince though. Fresh Prince was like one of my favorite shows growing up. Like Will Smith, Carlton, doing the Carlton dance. The mom changing actors, you know? Are two worlds apart. The X-Files. So this is another one that I didn't really grow up watching because I felt like it was more so for adults. In fact, a lot of these, like Frasier, X-Files, even Star Trek. My step-grandpa was a big fan of Star Trek. He was very much like a nerd and a geek of his time. So he was always watching a Star Trek, the Next Generation. And me and Beans want to get more into it. We do. My parents watched Frasier and Seinfeld, so I got into them via osmosis. They used to show The Nanny and Fresh Prince in Mexico. Oh, I've heard of The Nanny. I've definitely like seen a couple of episodes here and there, but never enough to like really be like, oh yeah, I love The Nanny. And a couple other ones. Beverly Hills 90210, I wasn't really into that one. Home Improvement, I just know because of the huh? Like that weird like sound that Tim Allen makes. Growing up, I considered Star Trek to be a boring show for adults because adults watch boring shows. Same, 100% same though. I was also like, oh, my step-grandpa's watching Star Trek. And Gargoyles, even though Gargoyles is banging though. Like, every time I saw episodes, it was always like the most banging, like that was an amazing show. But like, because it was my grandpa watching it, I was like, boring. This is too adult for me. There's also Xena Warrior Princess. Vaguely remember that. And her lesbian love affair with, was it Gabrielle, right? Where it's like, they weren't quite allowed to say that they were, you know, roommates. But I feel like there were a lot of implications. So there were those shows, and then animation, my favorite part, because I definitely grew up watching a lot of these. A very sapphic series, indeed. So, animation, let's talk about it. A lot of Disney ones came out during, so a lot of like very famous Disney films came out during this year, or this decade rather. So you got Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Mulan, Tarzan, and Toy Story. So Toy Story was kind of a big deal because of its 3D animation. Where is it? Where is it? Did I not put it here? BTAS? It that way. I thought I included it in here. Did I not include Toy Story in here? Am I just being blind right now? Mistake, tell me why. I never wanna hear you say. But yeah, Toy Story was kind of big because of its 3D animation. It was one of the earliest examples of like 3D CG animation used in a feature film. And it looked pretty good for its time. And the fact that like textures weren't super developed at the time worked in favor of like the setting and story of like Toy Story because they're toys, you know, they don't need like pores and like realistic textures. Like, they just need it to look smooth and plastic, you know? I can very clearly remember lying in bed watching Star Trek TNG in a tiny black and white spare TV with my parents in my grandpa's guest bedroom, which was the hot attic. Aw, that sounds like a nice memory. What's that picture of me on the left? Oh yeah, do you guys want to see this? This is an actual picture of me back in the 90s. And this is proof that I've always been terminally online. Look at that. Look at my cool little laptop. I'm gonna give you guys a little secret. This is not an actual screen. This is all just like a design that's actually on here. This black square was the actual screen, and even then, it wasn't a real screen. It's one of these. I don't know if any of you ever grew up with these little like I guess you could call them like handheld toys, where it's like it already has a background and it like has kind of like this 1-bit animation that just kind of repeats, and you can play it like a video game, but like it's very limited. Like it's kind of like a long shot to call it like a screen, like a computer screen in the way that we think about it now. So like that's what this was. This is basically like a laptop shaped toy, where like this black screen was the actual like screen itself, and even then it was just showing like random words that make you feel like you're using a real computer. You had some of those from Tiger Electronics. Nice! Minka was a Hypnospace mod back in the day. Exactly, this is me doing my work. This is me being a mod. But yeah, this is an actual picture of me. Here, I thought this was VHS tapes. I think these are books. I think these are probably like my mom's books and stuff. Tiger Electronic Games, the ultimate I bought a gift on the way to the party. Laptop that's really ahead of its time. Yeah, it's albeit it's a toy, but it is based off of like a laptop, which like, yeah, that was kind of like ahead of its time. This is actually my grandma's house. So, and I lived with my grandma until I was around like 8 years old. So this has to be around like 1997 or before that. No, 1999. Because I turned 8 in 1990, like late 1998. So this is like at latest 1998. And I want to say anytime between like 96 to 98. Or 99, sorry. This is late 90s. I'll just say that. This is late 90s. But yeah, see? You can tell I was terminally online from the beginning, you guys. From the very beginning. Laptop toys, the latest in technology. Exactly. But yeah, these were those toys. These were those like Tiger Electronics. Where like, I kind of want to see, you know what? I want to show you guys what I mean by the screen. Especially for the youngins that don't know like what this is. Let me see if I can find it. Tiger Electronics. Tiger handheld. Okay, ignore the fact that I like grossly misspelled it, but here you go. Here, this is what it looks like. Like it's literally just like kind of like repeating animations, and you still control it. It is still a video game. Living la vida loca. It actually is like a video game, which I think was like really impressive for its time. But yeah. Let's see, more animation stuff. So Toy Story, Rugrats, Klasky Supo animation. So that would include things like Real Monsters. Let's see. Kind of, yeah, exactly, Pexco, like Mr. Game & Watch, basically digital watch tech adapted to a video game. Exactly, 100%, it was that. I was kind of struggling to like find the words to explain like what it was, but basically, yeah, that. Don Bluth Films! So these are some of the works by Don Bluth over here. I believe all this is All Dogs Go to Heaven, right? But yeah, he also animated, what's it called? Anastasia, Thumbelina, American Tail, which we're going to be watching tomorrow on the Discord, by the way. We're going to be doing like a short little watch along of the first American Tail movie, mostly because I want to watch the second. My favorite is actually the second, but I don't remember enough about the first, and I feel like the first kind of gives us some context, right? Let's see what else. Animaniacs, the Animaniacs. Batman the Animated Series, Rocko's Modern Life, Dexter's Lab, X-Men the Animated Series, Hey Arnold, Arthur, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Pokemon. I put this in bold because even though I love Digimon so much more, which also came around in 1999, Pokemon hit everything. Like Pokemania was like the name of the game. Like everyone was obsessed with Pokemon, and that did start in the 90s. So yeah, like this is kind of like bolding it is kind of like an understatement of like how much like Pokemon, even nowadays, it's like the fact that Pikachu is kind of one of the most recognizable figures in all of like animation history, even surpassing like Mickey Mouse, goes to show all of that, right? So yeah, you do have stuff like Andy Tarkovsky, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, And these were kind of arguably like kind of inspired by styles of like the 70s and 80s as well, or arguably 60s and 70s. And you also had the beginning of adult animation, including, I should have bolded The Simpsons as well, because Simpsons, alongside Pokemania, was also Simpsons Mania. But you also had South Park, King of the Hill, The Simpsons, Gargoyles arguably is also like adult animation. So adult animation, I feel like a lot of people might think that that's like, you know, pornographic animation. That's more so like adult animation more so refers to like anything that is like mature, with like that covers mature topics. Actually, The Simpsons is from the 80s, nerd emotes. Well, I think I accidentally hit my desk with my chair. I think are we talking about the Tracy Ullman shorts? Because that is 89, right? But did the actual episode start in? I think it is still 89. Now that I think about it. I don't know. Feel free to correct me. I feel like the Tracy Ullman shorts are definitely 89, but I don't remember if the actual like series itself starts in 89. Is the watch along going to be in the morning? It is. It is. It's gonna be in the morning because I do kind of want to chill for the rest of the weekend, especially because I'm still coming off of the end of this December 1989. Oh my gosh, The Simpsons don't remember the 90s because they're not 90s kids. They barely missed the cutoff. There we go. Thank you, folk. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Yes, so technically, The Simpsons is 80s, but barely. You know, it'd be funny if it's like, yeah, December... Is it December 25? Because the first episode is Simpsons roasting on an open fire. Is it? Okay, I'm so curious. When did Simpsons roasting on an open fire air date? Because I was gonna say, like, the only thing funnier is if it's late December. Oh, it's December 17th. December 17th. It'd be funny if it's, like, December 31st, 1989. Where it's, like, technically it's an 80s series, but come on. They missed their own great seasons. Exactly. Not counting the Tracy Ullman shorts. Yeah, there you go. So you got me. But that's so funny. That's so funny. But yeah. Also, did you guys know that in a lot of merch, Bart has a blue shirt, not an orange shirt? And there's this like, kind of like old wives' tale, not old wives' tale, but like this rumor that it's because they didn't want people bootlegging Simpsons, like merch, so they would use like blue Bart, like blue shirt for Bart for that reason. But that's actually false, because like what's stopping, like why wouldn't they do the same with like all the other Simpsons outfits, you know? It's just one of those cases where it's like this was like an early version of his design that they just like sent to the toy manufacturers, and that's why a whole bunch of merch has like blue shirt Bart. You can tell that I watched that video about the Simpsons iceberg. Beavis and Butthead is also adult animation. So I actually need to look this up. I wrote down Family Guy because that's what it said on the Wikipedia article, but did Family Guy really start in the 90s? I feel like that was like 2000, or maybe it was more popular in the 2000s, but Family Guy first episode air date. Oh my god. No, okay, this one has some credence. It's January 1999. I was gonna say like, oh my gosh, don't tell me that don't tell me that Family Guy is like December 1999. Like the same thing with The Simpsons. But no, actually, to be fair, Family Guy did come out in January of 1999, so it still has an entire year within the 90s. Let's see. I remember the joke they did about that. Homer enrages a bull using Lisa's red dress, and then the calming blue picks up Bart. Where's your blue shirt? I don't have a blue shirt. I remember that one. The Bartello effect. Of the shadow of death. And realize there's nothing left. I actually really liked this song as a kid. I'm not kidding. I think I told you guys a story of how I really liked the Snoop Dogg like cover art as a kid, like legit as a kid, you know? But I remember like my mom listening to this song a lot, like in the early 90s, and I actually really liked this song. Now I get the joke. Family Guy was late 90s. It had a Y2K episode and everything. Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I just thought it'd be funny if, like, technically Family Guy is a 90s series the same way that The Simpsons is an 80s series, where it's like, I guess. Like, okay, the last part of pop culture is video games. So now we have progressed past Pong and pixel graphics into polygonal graphics and whatnot, 3D graphics. So in terms of consoles, we had the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, PS1, and Nintendo 64, Game Boy Color, and a whole bunch of others that I'm forgetting here. And then some very notable games of the time, of this decade, were Super Mario World, Mario 64, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, a favorite. I actually looked up if Majora's Mask was also 90s. It's 2000s. Sonic the Hedgehog, Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, Final Fantasy 7 and 8, MGS 1, Crash Bandicoot, whoa! Star Fox 64, StarCraft, and Half-Life were all 90s games. So a lot of these featured, still, pixel art was definitely still a thing, but people were starting to venture into 3D graphics. Been spending most of life living in the Binka's paradise. Family Guy was, I was just happy with my PC games. Same, like the Humongous Entertainment, right? The classic mega seller console, the Panasonic 3DO. Exactly. All decent niche games I don't think anyone's ever heard of ever. Exactly. StarCraft was my childhood. It's why I ended up with the gamer disease of scoliosis. I actually really liked StarCraft. I think I played it more in the 2000s, but I remember like immediately I liked the Zerg. Like I like the fact that I could just make a whole bunch of units and just Zerg rush. I remember as a kid that was just so satisfying. Like, I'm just like, you just make your units and then just bum rush them, you know? Yeah, I also included some Tamagotchis in here, you know, because Digimon would kind of like come out of that as like the quote-unquote boy version of Tamagotchi. So, you know. A gangster's paradise. But yeah, that is 90s pop culture. Once again, it's so hefty compared to the others because, like, so many of these are familiar, you know? To see that the ones we heard are you and me. I actually only knew of the 3DO from that one service merchandise or Circuit City! Oh my gosh. Memories. There's a thrift store that a friend told me about in a certain part of like Los Brincos that is very much a like it used to be a Circuit City, and you can tell because it has that like red tower that's still a part of it, but if you go inside, it's a thrift store. But yeah, let me see. We do have 5 minutes before the ad break. I do want to get some water. You know what? We'll start fashion, we'll go to cars, and then we'll end off on art and aesthetics. I can't believe we're already 2 hours in. Time flies. Time flies. Man, 90s fashion. I was telling Beans that, like, when it comes to fashion, I feel like even this, like, even though, like I said, I was barely sentient for, like, the first half of the decade, even in the, like, second half of the decade, my mom was dressing me up. So, like, I feel like I just wore whatever my mom prepped for me for elementary school without too much thought of, like, oh yeah, I want to wear the Adidas today. I want to wear the flannel today. Like, I just wore whatever my mom told me to wear, you know? And it's funny because, like, when you look up fashion for the 90s, you do get some pretty good pictures, but I've kept finding myself wanting more examples. And actually, like, what I found is that certain TV shows had pretty banger 90s fashion. And I think my favorite example is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because, like, look at this. like, I feel like this encapsulates so much of just, like, 90s, like, fashion in a nutshell, right? Like, you have your flannel. Is this sleeveless flannel? Oh my gosh. You have, like, the like, funky colors and stuff. You have the shirt underneath the spaghetti strap dress. You know, you have the patterns. You have even like these kind of like straight bangs as well. Oh, my cursor turned into a hand. All the old Circuit cities still have that square entrance. It's like how you spot an old standalone Pizza Hut. Oh my gosh, yes. One of the old Circuit cities around here is a climbing gym. I can only hope they made the Red Tower a climbing obstacle. Aw, I love that. Here's another example from Power Rangers. Even like, look at the film like yellowing. It's so like, I remember like seeing this photo and being like, like, have you guys ever felt like a sense of nostalgia, but it's kind of painful? Like, I saw this photo and I kind of felt that, because not only is it like the Power Rangers, but it like very specifically brought me back to like when I was a kid, and like my mom had like a friend who also had kids that were around my age, and there were two boys, and like they were super into Power Rangers. So like we'd always play pretend, and because I was like the only girl they knew, they're like, okay, you're the Pink Ranger. None of us ever thinking that I could also be the Yellow Ranger, because also I'm Asian. Like, okay, to be fair, they were also Asian, but like, but yeah, they were like, you're the Pink Ranger, and then like the two brothers would fight over like who's the Red Ranger. And I believe I think the older one had the dagger, the wait, what was the actual like tune for it? Anyway, he had like the dagger that was also a flute for the White Ranger. So, but yeah, like this very specifically brought me back to that memory. It's like a tinge like painful in a way, because it's like, it's behind us now. It's behind us. Yeah, Trini. I was a Yellow Ranger because of her hair. I thought it looked similar to mine. Honestly, based. Like, honestly, I don't know why like as a kid I was always like I like the Pink Ranger, and I never even like thought about like the Yellow Ranger. But I love her. She's so iconic. Also, rest in peace. Like she was a real one. Seinfeld and Friends also have like really iconic like 90s like fashions. Like look at this jacket, you know? My brother and I never had to fight over what ranger we were. I like blue or black, he liked green. Well, there you go. Nice. Nice. Now I'm like, I think during the ad break I'm gonna look up what the tune was for the flute. I feel like it was like do 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 or something like that, right? Yeah, look at these fashions. Oh, and then Full House as well. Look at the freaking mullet. And then Mary-Kate and Ashley, or Mary-Kate and or Ashley, you know? But yeah, you know what? Let's I'm gonna go ahead and put you guys in recess a little bit early because my nose is getting itchy. I want to go wash it and I want to get some water. So I'm gonna put you guys in ad break a little bit early. But I'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about fashion. And we'll go from there. Alright? It's alright? It's alright. There we go. No phantom legs this time. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, I'm back. I washed my face a whole bunch of times, so hopefully my nose won't be itchy. But let's get back to it, because I also like the song and I want you guys to hear the song. Pretend that you love me. Alright, let's talk fashion. Let's talk fashion. So, 90s fashion. When you weren't just wearing what your parents told you to wear, here's what you were wearing. Tattoos and piercing, that's right. As a cub. No, I'm just kidding. But they were becoming a little bit more popular around the older kiddos, the Gen Xers, if you will. What did I write down here? So, in contrast to the 1980s, the fashion of the decade was a little bit more minimalist and casual and low maintenance. Grunge and alt-rock was a big influence of the time, which kind of encouraged a little bit more of an unkempt and effortless look, especially with the flannels. I'm a big fan of flannels. But tattoos and piercings became a little bit more accepted into the mainstream. You saw more people like wearing them and not just being like seen. Like older generations would be like, ah, look at these like, you know, Gen X kids freaking like mutilating their bodies and blah blah blah. But overall, it was a little bit more accepted, of course. The grunge look, like I said, would include flannel shirts, ripped jeans, small fitted sweaters, bell bottoms, Doc Martens, band tees, and eco-friendly clothing. Interesting thing with ripped jeans, because like it caught on so well that you did start to see in like the 2000s and even into the 2010s, like stores were selling like jeans that were already ripped and in kind of like patterns in which like, you know, very like manufactured ripped jeans, if that makes sense. Because I remember buying some like in the 2010s. There was also controversially something known as the heroin chic look, where models of the time were kind of like popularizing this like thin waif-like figure. It's controversial because it kind of like normalized and like popularized this idea of like essentially like eating disorders, or like the only way that you can get a figure like that is with like some kind of like self-harm and like eating disorder. So that's why it's kind of controversial. During the early part of the decade, the vibrant colors of the 1980s were still fashionable, but you did see a little bit more of like neon with bold geometric print. For the girlies, by the mid-90s, glamour wear included slip dresses. So this is like this, basically like your spaghetti strap dresses. And this does remind me that like starting in around like, I want to say middle school, I remember our dress codes would include like no spaghetti straps. If you get caught like wearing spaghetti straps with nothing underneath, then you get sent home, or you have to wear like your PE shirt. You know, I do remember like this mention of like spaghetti straps being a no-no. And I think it's because like for its time, this was basically seen as like underwear, like not necessarily like when I think of underwear, I think of like panties, bra, but underwear as in like you would wear this under something, you know, like you would wear this over like a full outfit, but this became outerwear. You definitely saw it coupled with like a white t-shirt worn underneath, which in my opinion makes it a little bit more modest, but yeah, that was kind of the look at the time. 1950s feminine wear was popular with women over 30, and then because this was the 1990s and it was 20 years after the 1970s, you started to get people who had grown up in the 70s becoming nostalgic for those fashions, so 1970s became chic. By the late 90s, casual chic featured stonewashed jeans, overalls, crop tops, spaghetti straps, tracksuits, and other athletic clothing. Some popular brands for the time, especially with footwear, were Adidas, my favorite, the Adudus. You can't see it on my long legs right now, but I do love me some Adudus. Skechers and Nike were also popular at the time. And then in terms of hairstyles, side ponytails is funny because I don't think I have an example here, but that was my mom's like favorite hairstyle to put me in as a kid. like when I was a kiddo, yeah, I don't think any of these like samples have it, but like my mom would always give me like a side ponytail, like as a kiddo. What else? Oh yeah, bangs, kind of like what we saw with Trini, the Yellow Ranger. Scrunchies, pixie cuts, and bob cuts were also very popular. And then in terms of men's fashion, you saw early 90s had high-waisted jeans, polo shirts, often with prominent logos. You know what? I remember my dad having stuff like that. I do remember my dad like wearing a lot of which is the one with like the guy on the horse? Is that Tommy Hilfiger? I forget, but my dad would wear a lot of those. Denim shirts, athletic and sporty styles, as well as aforementioned grunge stylings. So once again, the flannel shirts. Yeah, the polo shirts. Yeah, the polo shirts. My dad wore a lot of polo shirts. Actually, when he was like a little bit younger, he wore more like... I should give you guys an example. Way back in the 80s, my dad wore more stuff like this. Because this is actually like my two parents. But like I do remember him like as he got more into like adulthood and like fatherhood, I guess like I saw him wearing more polo shirts. The guy on the horse is Ralph Lauren. Oh, okay. Thank you. Where am I again? Okay, over here. Mid to late 90s saw mod clothing and 1970s inspired fashion making a comeback, as well as preppy and hip-hop stylings. And popular hairstyles included longer hair. My dad used to have longer hair. Did he get punnier as he became more dad? He was always a jokester. I don't think like because he's like Filipino American. I feel like had he like come to the US a little bit earlier, because he didn't come to the US until like the 80s. And like I feel like if he had done that, he definitely would have been more punnier, because like his puns would have probably been based off of Tagalog. You know what? He had weird puns. I'm trying to remember some like from my childhood. Like he you know what? I feel like a lot of like Filipinos, especially of my dad's generation, or I think Filipinos in general, especially if they grew up in the Philippines, they like wordplay. And I know that kind of like also goes into like puns and stuff, but I feel like it's like their wordplay like sometimes plays more with like syllables rather than like double meanings and stuff. I don't really know what to like how to say it, because he would always... It's funny because like as I recount this wasn't even funny, but it was just kind of like a kind of a weird quirky thing. He would always say that like, oh, what's Washington backwards? And I would try to like spell it backwards, but he would say like, oh, it's Tonchingwa. And I was like, what? That's not it backwards. But if you think about it, it's like the syllables of Washington backwards. So he would always like say that like Washington backwards is Tonchingwa. And it like sounds vaguely East Asian, I guess. Like I said, it's not like funny like to like for me to recount this. But it's just like that was just like a quirk that I remember from like the 90s. So yeah. Other hairstyles, oh yeah, mullets, ponytails, flat tops over here, your high top fades, and your cornrows. And then a couple of subcultures included grunge, punk, skater, he was a skater boy, she said see you later boy, hip hop, goth, and preppy. So if you guys want examples of that, here's a little bit more of like the hip hop stylings with your tracksuits, the gold chains. I like the flat caps over here. And then this is Will Smith. You have like a mix of like the grunge, but also kind of like hip hop stylings where like you're also wearing the flannel, but it's a little bit more oversized, mixed with denim. Like the flannel with the denim is such a good look that to this day I kind of still like emulating every so often. And like I said, prime examples of like 90s fashion is from TV shows like Friends, Seinfeld, Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, stuff like that. So yeah, that was fashion of the 1990s. I think this will hopefully help us when we get to Time Guesser, if we're looking at like more kind of casual, downplayed, unkempt styles. You also saw less hairspray during this time, by the way. I didn't write this down, but like when you look at photos from the 80s, sometimes you're gonna see a lot of big hair. Even into like the early 90s, you still see a lot of that big hair because there was a lot of liberal use of hairspray. But because the 90s also brought about like this increased concern with the environment, it eventually came out that hairspray was kind of like one of the leading factors of like overuse of hairspray, along with like many other factors, kind of like led to environmental concerns such as like the hole in the ozone and stuff like that. So eventually there was legislature. I don't know if this was even like 90s or even 2000s, but there was legislature basically limiting the certain chemical that kind of eats away at the ozone. But also people like kind of en masse started using hairspray a little bit less. So even though you do see it with some stylings, the hair isn't as big as it was in the 80s. So yeah, that is fashion, 90s fashion. And then we'll take a short aside to cars before we get into art styles. This is actually the last thing that I researched for this. I researched it yesterday, and I even drew a couple of cars. I can't show it to you at the moment. I did take some pictures though. So now you know what? I think I can. Let me just send it to myself on Discord, and I can show you some of my drawings. They're not great, but I did like how they came out. My body's saying let's go, but my heart is saying no. If you wanna be with me, the price to pay. Alright, give me a second. I'm sending myself some photos. Okay. I'm a genie in a bottle, baby. Alright, here is what I drew. I'll zoom in. But let me paste in the other one. So I typically like to do 3 cars. One from the early 90s, one from the mid 90s, or one from like early in the decade, one midway through the decade, and one late in the decade. So the ones that oh wait, I accidentally pasted the same image twice. Give me a second. Here we go. So I did a Lexus LS 400. This is 1993. Honda Accord 1996. I chose this one very specifically because it's a car that my dad used to have. And then the Ford Taurus sedan 1999. So we'll look at the pictures of each of those as well. So let's start with the Lexus 400. Let me see if I have a picture of one of them. I believe it's this one. So one of the big things that is going to help us with Time Guesser with the 90s and identifying cars from the 90s is the bumper. The bumper is now plastic and incorporated with the overall shell. This is something that I didn't really notice up until I was doing some comparisons. If we go back to the 80s, for example, let's look at some cars from the 80s. Actually, these are also plastic. I'm trying to find some examples. So here we go. So if you look at, for example, here, the bumper is metal, right? It's like chrome. They start to become a little bit more plastic, but sometimes they're like a little bit more defined, right? And then in the 90s, a vast majority of them, at least from the samples that I was able to find, they're very much now incorporated within the shell itself. Another thing is that they start becoming less boxy and more bean-shaped. This was my favorite. So Beans told me to look up a Miata from the 90s. I immediately saw this picture and I could not stop laughing. like what? Oh, what's that? What's that phenomena where like people see faces everywhere? It was in freaking the poker game. Pareidolia? Pareidolia? The phenomena where like you see faces everywhere. Doesn't this look like just like a happy little guy? This looks like he's just like happy to be here. He's like, wow. I love the 90s. That's what he looks like. It's adorable. But yeah, it starts to get a little less boxy, a little bit more rounded in many ways. And then another thing that I started noticing is at the back, the booty of a lot of the cars are shortening. Actually, they're even shorter here in the 80s as well. But if you compare them to like the 60s and 70s, I want to say, where's the cars? I know for the most part, a lot of them are kind of like becoming smaller and smaller. But here, there's just something about like maybe it's because it's rounded in the back that it feels a little bit smaller. And then there is now a bottom like exhaust or grill or whatever you call this that actually makes like a mouth. It looks like a mouth now. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Honda Accord 1996. I believe that's this one. So yeah, this is the car that I kind of grew up with. My dad had this one for a very long time. So like even just seeing this feels very familiar to me, especially with that like black line down the middle. And then this last one, this is the Ford Taurus, and it's very round. Like look at every part of it. Like the little like headlights are round. The nose of it, the snoot of it is very round. Even this these exhaust thingies are also round. Even this you can kind of see why was it the Chevron with Techron commercials had those anthropomorphized cars, because they did kind of start to look like faces. Let's see. Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this. You don't have that bottom exhaust. You just have this top one over here. This one kind of does. This Honda over here, it has one and then two. I'm trying to find other examples. Actually, you do also see a bottom exhaust here. But it just feels a little bit more prominent in the 90s. So yeah, but the main thing that is kind of differentiating a lot of 80s and 90s cars is the boxiness compared to the roundness. You have more beans. More bean-shaped cars. So yeah, that's cars. I think the cars and the fashion is probably gonna help us out the most with any time guesses that are in the 90s. And from here, we have 4 sections of art movement. So before we get that, I'm gonna just take a quick pause to get a drink of water. And then we're gonna get into it, because we're gonna start first with formal art movements, stuff you see in museums. Followed by art that you would see more in daily life, or in the what's called the vernacular, what you would see in your day-to-day life in things like cafes and stuff. So that's gonna be more so these art styles, which are more so aesthetics, and then things like internet art. Whereas these 2 sections over here are more so what you would see in museums. But let me get a drink of water, and then we'll get started on that. I'll probably end on that too. All right, let's get into it. So let's actually dial back to the 80s just for a little brief review. So when it came to art movements in the 80s, you did see a continuation of things like street art, graffiti art, but also some new styles were coming into fashion, such as neo-pop, which was kind of copying pop art of the 60s, which kind of combined very familiar figures and using them to kind of anchor art. And then neo-expressionism, in which it was kind of a rejection of minimalism and conceptual art, and more of you wanted to see as much emotion as possible in this art. You wanted to see it in the strokes of your brush. You wanted to see it in the lines and the vibrant colors and stuff. So that's kind of what was happening in the 80s. Same with this continuation of street art and graffiti art. So fast forward to the 90s, and we're seeing kind of a bounce back to the idea of minimalism and conceptual art, but also a continuation of neo-pop. So here, the 2 kind of big art. Well, I was gonna say one of the big artists is Jeff Koons. You did see some of his work in the 80s as well, but some of his more familiar work, such as these metal balloon dogs, and then this one is Split Rocker. You did see them more towards the 90s, and then you also had posthumous, aka works that were published or popularized after one's death. You saw some posthumous works from Keith Haring. So he ultimately did pass away due to complications from HIV/AIDS in 1989. But some of his works were kind of shown more to the public into the early 90s. So this is one of them. This is a really cool triptych that is on metal, and it's very much in his style too. So you did see kind of a continuation of that, but you also did see a continuation of minimalism and conceptual art. For example, I looked into a couple of artists such as Maurizio Cattelan. This is a Italian artist, and instead of showing any one of his visual arts, I just went to the Wikipedia page, and it actually gave us a description of some of the things that he did in his exhibits that kind of gave him this title of the prankster artist. And a lot of them are things that I feel a lot of these are built to be so that people will be that's art ? It's almost rage bait, but through conceptual art. So I'm just gonna read off some examples of what he did, and I'll let you decide, and I'm not saying that I feel There's a lot of times like in these decade studies where I'll learn a little bit more about an art movement and be like, oh, I understand it more. So now I feel like I like it a little bit more. Like I do feel like this was the case with like abstract expressionism and neo-expressionism and stuff like that. But there are still some things where I'm like, I understand it now. I don't like it. I don't know if I like it. So here are some things that Maurizio Cattelan has done. So in 1993, he leased his allotted space to an advertising agency, which installed a billboard promoting a new perfume. 1995, he persuaded his gallerist, Emmanuel Perrotin, to wear a giant pink rabbit costume shaped like a phallus to Cattelan's gallery opening. 1996, as a profound example of found art for an exhibition at De Apple Art Center in Amsterdam, he stole the entire contents of another artist's show from a nearby gallery, with the satirical idea of passing it off as his own ready-made work until the police insisted he return the loot on threat of arrest. 97, taxidermied pigeons and fake pigeon feces exhibited in an Italian pavilion at the Venice Biennale of 1997. Dug a coffin-shaped hole in the floor of the museum's main gallery. Cattelan executed this piece, a project that involved an Indian fakir who practiced a daily ritual of being buried beneath sand in a small room until only his clasped hands are visible. That's kind of scary, actually. 2001, we're getting out of the 90s, but I just want to like kind of conclude with this. Installation created for that museum in Rotterdam depicts the artist peering mischievously from a hole in the floor at a gallery of the 17th century Dutch masters. So it's up to you to decide like whether you like or dislike this. For one, like it is still considered art because it is like something that you can like have a conversation around, and like I said, kind of decide whether or not you like it or not. In my opinion, a lot of this feels like almost like, you know, trying to push the it's what the Dada is we're trying to do, like push the limits of what is considered art. But a lot of it kind of feels like rage bait. like the whole like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take the guy from like the other gallery, I'm just gonna take his work and I'm gonna say that it's my work. But it's like, you know, it's a ready-made. It's kind of like what Duchamp did all the way in the 20s. It's like that last part where it's just like, until the police insisted that he return the loot on threat of arrest, you know? Some of these do feel like a little like, you know, cheeky. Like the like, oh, the art is like, I'm peeking at you because you're the art. It's just a prank, bro. Art. It's just a prank, bro. Or this one where it's like, yeah, I paid a guy to come to my, oh, my cursor keeps turning into a hand. I paid a guy to look like a penis to come to my gallery opening. You know, like, it's like, can you imagine that like in the near future, Babinka Bear has her own art exhibit in the Binka Museum, in the Mr. Pancakes Museum of Los Binkos, and I'm just like, yeah, I paid my mods. I paid Becca Bronson and Matthew to stare at you. Actually, I paid this grill, this anime grill, and this fishing bear to stare at you. Actually, like, that's the gallery. is they're gonna stare at you. I mean, at least I'm not making you guys dress up like a phallus, but you know, like, I paid these guys to stare at you. That's the exhibit. Enjoy. Like, arguably though, that is kind of like what happens later on with is it Marina? This one over here. This person over here, who is also another conceptual artist, where like the whole concept is that you come up and you stare at the artist. You don't talk, you don't touch, you just stare at each other. And like in some ways I do kind of like the execution of that, but I don't know, there is something funny about like, oh, the exhibit is that I paid these guys to stare at you. Oh no, how did these get moved? Did I accidentally move anything? I think I did. There we go, yeah, I accidentally moved all that. Have you ever seen the Never Say No to Panda commercials? Is that the one where like I've seen a GIF where it's a panda like throwing a like a computer screen or something, like in rage? Is that what that is? But yeah, that is some of the work of Maurizio Cattelan. Once again, he's kind of known as like a prankster artist. Oh, that is where that's from? I've never actually seen the commercials, but I have seen that GIF. Once again, it's up to you on whether or not you like the art, but that is still considered art in the genre of like minimalism and conceptual art. And there are other examples that I actually like that resonate with me a little bit more, and I just personally like it a little bit more. We'll get to Andreas Gursky and Hiroshi Sugimoto, but I did talk a little bit when I was introducing the idea of conceptual art. I did mention these two before, but John Boscovich and Felix Gonzalez Torres, who like their conceptual art was around loved ones that they had lost due to complications of HIV/AIDS. So, for example, for Felix Gonzalez Torres, there's Portrait of Ross in LA and Perfect Lovers, where like the artwork itself is just a pile of candy that is meant to be like about 130 pounds, which was the weight of his loved one before they had passed away. And people are invited to kind of like take candy from this pile and basically see the pile shrink and kind of waste away, kind of similar to how the artist had seen his loved one waste away due to the complications. So it's almost like reliving that, but also kind of like welcoming the museum goer in kind of that process. Another one is Perfect Lovers, which like the concept, like the actual like art itself is two clocks, you know, and these don't have to be clocks that were made by the artists themselves. It's just two clocks. You could get them at the 99-cent store if it still existed. But basically it's two clocks that are set to the same exact time, but eventually one of the clocks might break, or they might get like, they might slow down because like the battery has died or something like that. And eventually like the time gets like they're no longer in sync with one another. And in some cases, the clock might just stop because they ran out of batteries. And that is kind of equivalent to like the idea of like losing a loved one, where like your clock will keep on going, but theirs has stopped, or theirs has slowed or stopped. But another facet of it, another like part of it is that like whoever has this exhibit is also instructed to like when the clocks do stop, refill the batteries, you know, so that they start going again. And basically the cycle repeats itself. So even though ostensibly these are just regular objects, it's the concept and the story around them that kind of like brings them to life. So I kind of like that. Resonates a little bit more with me compared to like some of the works of Maurizio Cattelan. Some of these, as I was reading them, I was like, okay, I think I like the little mischievous one from 2001. But yeah, it's interesting in that way. You can probably hear the dog on the from outside. If you hear the bork bork, it's that. So some other honorable mentions. Andreas Gursky. So he's well known for this photo of a 99-cent store. And this looks like it's just kind of like a big panorama picture, but it's actually an example of like a digitally manipulated photo, where it's a composite of a whole bunch of different photos, but also he did edit parts of it, such as like the ceiling is a lot more reflective in this edit to kind of like flatten the piece. And he also made the colors a lot more vibrant to kind of like, for one, like aesthetically, I just like the vibrancy of like the colors, but also it is meant to be a critique or a conversation starter about the nature of consumerism and like, look at all these products, but they're so cheap. They're for 99 cents, you know? For me, there is also like an extra facet of like nostalgia with this, because like this typography doesn't quite exist anymore. These stores don't really exist anymore. Cry. Sag. Even the packaging, you know, is like a moment in time. Some of these like products might not exist anymore. Some of the packaging might have changed, you know? So it's just like, that's another kind of like dimension to it now that we're here in the 2020s looking back on it. But that's some of Andreas Gursky's works. And Hiroshi Sugimoto is one that I remember studying during my studies in college, my art history studies. I actually did a report on this guy. So he is a photographer, but he kind of also does a little bit into like minimalism conceptual art. So a lot of his works are long exposure, and he photographs things like dioramas, theaters, and seascapes that at first glance might not seem super impressive, but because it's long exposure, you get things like he's photographing an ocean, but slow exposure. And that kind of means like it's taking a while to how do I say this properly? When you do slow exposure on a camera, if something is moving too fast, it's not necessarily going to be like captured. You need something that is staying still long enough to be captured on the film. And you actually see that with one of the first photographs. Let me see. I think it's a daguerreotype. Paris Street. This one, Boulevard du Temple. This is from 1830. Here, this is just an example of what I mean. So this is like an example of like very early photography, where like it took quite a while. It took quite a while for like the light to collect in the camera itself. So if anything is like moving faster, like if it like moves, it's not going to be captured, right? Unless it's standing still for a very long time. So this street looks empty, but it's because everyone is kind of walking around, so their light isn't captured in the photograph. The only exception is this guy. There's this guy over here who's getting his shoes shined. So he was staying still just long enough to be captured on this film. Everyone else was moving too fast for it. So basically when you do slow exposure, it's kind of like very similar in that regard, where like only things that are standing still can be captured when it comes to slow exposure photography. So this is actually a photo of the ocean. I don't remember which ocean, but if you zoom in, you can even see like little tiny ripples. But overall, like you can't see much of it because the ocean is always moving, right? It's never really staying still. But sometimes you can get a little bit of that ocean. Here is a theater, and it's actually like he set the camera on the movie. But of course, the movie is always changing visuals. It's changing scenes. So ultimately, nothing really gets captured. Like if you take a picture of, or like say a screenshot of a movie that you're watching, you're going to capture that moment in time. But here, because it's slow exposure, you're only going to be getting whatever is staying still. So that's the theater itself. And here, instead of seeing any kind of particular scene, you're just seeing the light coming from the theater itself. And then in the case of dioramas, if you're doing slow exposure, normally animals are moving all the time. So in what context would you see something like this? Jesse, what are you talking about? Photography. It's complicated to talk about, but it's basically like how much you let the light into kind of like the camera, stuff like that. I'm not good at talking about photography. I just think it's neat. But with animals, usually they're moving around. So if you're doing slow exposure photography with animals, you're not going to be able to capture them. If you do, they're going to be all blurry, right? But this isn't an actual animal. This is a diorama. And a diorama is basically like a fake scene with like, I don't know, like taxidermied animals or just fake animals. And they're set up in these scenes to kind of imitate life, but it's not actual life. So it kind of calls into question those things of like, well, this picture over here, is it realistic? Is it actually like, are we actually seeing nature, or are we just seeing kind of like a pastiche of nature? Let's see what else. So yeah, those are examples of like minimalism conceptual art being continued into the 1990s. And then you also had a movement called the Young British Artists. Admittedly, I didn't do a lot of research into this group that much, but I have heard of them. So you had intensely detailed nude paintings of Jenny Saville, but you also had Damien Hirst. So I did see a couple artworks of Damien Hirst, but his artwork is basic. Like one of his sets of artwork is a bunch of animals in formaldehyde. These are like actual animals that used to be alive, died at some point, and are preserved in formaldehyde, and that's the art. So like, once again, it's kind of up to you to decide like whether you would consider this like, you know, to your taste. It is still considered art, but then it gets into kind of like the grotesque of like, well, you're kind of seeing like a dead animal being preserved forever in death. You know, like there is something like kind of morbid about that. You know? Hello, it's me, Crewmate. Hello, Jojo the Joe. Hello, thanks for joining the class. I'm Babinka Bear, your local Sun Bear art history teacher and educational streamer, and today we're looking at the 90s. We talked a lot about current events during the 90s, certain controversies, politics, technologies, pop culture, fashion, cars, and we're kind of at the tail end. We're talking about art. You complete all the tasks? Bodacious! You know, you're familiar with the slang. You're familiar with the cool slang. Let's see. So yeah, those are some of like the art movements of the 1990s. Let's get into super flat as a movement, and then we'll get into like what I would call more vernacular art, which is like art that you would see more so like in daily life, especially if you grew up with the internet. You're familiar with a lot of 90s pop culture? Nice, nice. We were talking about how a lot of the people here, for me in particular, like I was born in 1990, so like even though I would consider myself a 90s kid, I wasn't really sentient for like the first half of it. So a lot of this was like cool research as to like, oh, like knowing the context behind a lot of those things, right? And a lot of the audience is kind of like around that same age group. When Patti LaBelle tributed Aretha Franklin at the 1993 Grammys. Yeah, cool. Very nice. So yeah, let's get into this art movement called super flat. It's a very interesting one that you might see kind of like inklings of even nowadays. And especially if you grew up like either in like otaku culture or like as a fan of anime or even a fan of like, I don't know, certain stylings in the 2000s, it actually stems from this style that was started by a guy named Takashi Murakami. So this is a style called super flat, and this movement is closely related to neo-pop. So we did talk about neo-pop very shortly. Once again, this is kind of an evolution of like 60s pop art that kind of like tried to ground the art in something familiar rather than like abstract, right? But Takashi Murakami also drew from like traditional Japanese culture and ukiyo-e painting. So with a lot of those paintings, they are meant to be flat. They are meant to not necessarily have any like shading or highlights, but there's still color and texture. And you see that a lot with these works. So these three works over here are from Takashi Murakami. You might or might not have seen some of these like flowers before, especially if you've ever seen like contemporary art. So like he's very well known for like these little like flower drawings, but also this little avatar he has over here. So as you can see, technically a lot of his works don't have any highlights or shading at all. But it's kind of hard to call it flat because if you look closely, there's a lot of color. Very vibrant color, but also a lot of texture. So for example, like here on this one, you have this like almost like comic book style texture. It's almost like kind of grungy, kind of like befitting of the 90s, right? And it almost like kind of like makes it look like shading, and then there's lighter parts here that kind of like make it look like highlights, but technically there is no shading or highlights unless you count these like anime style highlights, right? But yeah, like instead of like doing things like shading or lighting, he uses color to kind of like put a lot of I don't know, like variety into it, if that makes sense. So you would see this with other artists as well. Oh yeah, and as I put here, it's marked by flatness, offset by vibrant colors, bold outlines, and creepy cute styles. So you do see some like kind of like morbid topics as well, especially like women or young girls, but they're in like kind of like they might be in some kind of like grotesque like situation or something like that. Some of the themes that are explored with this style include consumerism, otaku culture, and social commentary. One that I want to mention is this person. I'm trying to find, what was her name again? Oh, Yusuke Nakamura. So if you're familiar with Asian Kung Fu Generation or the anime Tatami Galaxy, which are both more so like 2000s, 2010s, this is the artist behind that. So like, especially if you've ever seen like the cover of like an Asian Kung Fu Generation like album, it's this style. This is Yusuke Nakamura, and he's from this like super flat art movement. Other notable artists from this movement include Yoshitomo Nara. I've seen a lot of his works. His works are very, I don't know, they're very whimsical in a way. He has a lot of emotionality in it. Yoshitomo Nara, Aya Takano. These are some of Takano's works. Chiho Aoshima. Oh no, this is Chiho Aoshima. This is Aya Takano. And then, oh yeah, I also put some honorable mentions. So they're not explicitly super flat, but some of their stylings kind of remind me of it. One example is Gekidan Inukuri, famous for the Madoka witch design. So if you guys were ever familiar with like Madoka Magica, let me actually show you guys some samples. Gekidan Inukuri. Side of his best friend's ride. Let me see, where are some of those samples? There we go. So if you are familiar with like Madoka, Meguka, if you will, the witch designs were done by this group called Gekidan Inukuri, and they kind of have like very similar vibes to this like super flat style, where very vibrant colors, very textured, technically no shading and highlights, but still like very vibrant and textured. And then another one is an artist named Junko Mizuno, who when I was still very much into my edgy phase, I used to look at a lot of her works. Her work does seem to be more so like kind of psychedelic. Like it's a mix of psychedelic and super flat, but I'll show you an example right here. So yeah, these two, technically they're not in the super flat movement, but their work definitely reminds me of it. But yeah, that's super flat. I just found it to be a very interesting style that kind of you see it definitely still into the 2000s, but it gets its start in the 90s. So cool. That's two movements that you would more so see in like museums and like fine art. So let's get into some vernacular art. Let's get into some art that you might see in your daily life in the 90s. Bib Edgeka. I was an edgy kid. What can I say? What can I say? All right, so I'm pretty excited to talk about this next one. This is internet art. Let's actually rewind a little bit. Let's go back to the not the 70s, the 80s. Because if you guys will remember, this was kind of the beginning of like computer and digital art. So as we said here, like while computer art dates back to the beginning of computers in the 1950s, the 1980s is when you saw more personal computers and inkjet printers being like available to like the common folk. So you would see things like ASCII art and like Macintosh icons that are considered art, or things that kind of look like they're straight out of MS Paint, or experimentation with like the Amiga system, or even pixel art like this. So we did have computer and digital art, but now we are including the internet in our art making. So yeah, I kind of put here that it's considered a development or offshoot of like TV or video art, and then arguably like digital art as well. Yes, Matthew. Excuse me. The cow emojis. The cow emojis, yes. But it can also include things like glitch art, old web, old CGI, also known as Silicon Dreams. And some notable artists from that movement include Paul Wiley and Ryan Bliss. And it's marked by the use of the internet as a medium for art, and sometimes includes interactivity, because once again, like with the internet and the World Wide Web kind of becoming a thing, now there was this idea of Nap, hello. Wow, Binka, something looks different. Did you change your hair? I did. I waxed my hair. I waxed my hair. Also, don't be fooled by the legs. That is a redeem. I have another set of legs. Look at that. Do you guys like my kicks? Do you guys like my kicks? Anyway, back to the legs that I found on the side of the road. But yeah, you caught us as we were talking about internet art, which I think is a really cool genre, because this is definitely like also relating to kind of like the Wild West of art. We did do a style study. Looking fresh in the kicks. Thank you, Nap. She killed Longlegs Binka and draped her across the desk. No, I am Longlegs Binka. I'm her. It me. Hello. It me. Marked by the use of the internet as a medium for art, sometimes with user interactivity, specifically set in the 1990s to to the 2000s with the beginning of widespread web accessibility. So that's always the name of the game with this like digital art, web art, internet art, is that like while it has its basis in much earlier times, it isn't until these tools become a little bit more widespread, especially with like the World Wide Web, you know, that it's like, oh, now I can make my own web page, but now I can like play around with the stylings with my handy HTMLs and stuff like that. Let's see. Often includes web browsers, HTML code, glitches, digital data, animated GIFs, web save colors, pixel art, low resolution art, digital artifacts, data corruption, static, early CGI, often with little to no textures and basic lighting. So I have these visual examples here that I think are all very cool. But I also have actual websites themselves. But before we get into that, there is this quote that I remember reading. I think it actually, yeah, it originates from this person, Brian Eno. But I think it has I don't know, I like the commentary here about like this style and these like things that we associate with them, such as like glitches, pixel art, low resolution. So here's the quote. Whatever you now find weird, ugly, uncomfortable, and nasty about a new medium will surely become its signature. CD distortion, the jitteriness of digital video, the crap sound of 8-bit, all of these will be cherished and emulated as soon as they can be avoided. It's the sound of failure. So much modern art is the sound of things going out of control, of a medium pushing to its limits and breaking apart. The distorted guitar sound is the sound of something too loud for the medium supposed to carry it. The blues singer with the cracked voice is the sound of the emotional cry too powerful for the throat that releases it. The excitement of grainy film, of bleached out black and white, is the excitement of witnessing events too momentous for the medium assigned to record them. So I think that's pretty cool, especially like nowadays with like, I keep like mentioning how like, I feel like naive art or art that looks quote unquote like crappy or bad is kind of making a comeback because it opposes things like AI art, which looks a little bit too polished. It looks too like unnaturally, you know, like good, perfect. So now is the time that we're kind of like looking for like imperfection. And this, I feel like this kind of like goes along with that because like me in particular, especially like I'm feeling very nostalgic for like kind of like this imperfection. And like, if you look at, for example, these early CGIs, there's something about them that like looks kind of imperfect. Like there's shading, but the shading is not quite like perfect, right? There's something about them that feels kind of unnatural, and that's because the shading technology of CGI back then wasn't great. But there's a charm to it nowadays, right? Even this, like arguably if you showed this to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, oh, this feels like so like over designed. There's too much color, there's too much going on. But now that we look back on it with kind of this lens of like nostalgia, it's like there is something charming about that. Even like the font, right? Like I feel like 10 years ago this would have been seen as like, this is kind of kitsch. Like this is kind of like cringe, I guess. But nowadays it's like, I kind of like this, you know? But yeah, with that said, in addition to these screenshots, we also have some websites. So let's take a look at netart.org. So these are just examples of like different types of like art websites. Cameron's World is another one. Let's take a look at, I also like this song. ASCII history of net art, moments of inertia, loop. My pain. What to do good? No, to shoot a semiotic can. Flash animation by Young Haechang Heavy Industries. Let's look at Loop. Loop was a ground learning project from 1998 to one web page a day for 6 weeks, 13 people, 364 pages, starting from the most basic HTML, getting more complex each day. A collective sketchbook, a space for ideas, a resource for other people, a learning process. Based in Woolwich in South London, the whole project ran from the 8th of June 1998 to the 22nd of July 1998. So launch Loop. Oh my gosh, how do I do this? It's from a rose. Oh, okay. So this is just people kind of like navigating how to use like HTML. And then little by little, it does kind of like evolve. You know, now we know how to attach images. Cool. Experiment with both. Oh, we're using tables now. We're learning how to use tables in HTML. Now we can do GIFs. Now we have tables with some dimensionality to it. Are these clickable? Now we're kind of playing around with dimensions. Look, this one's clickable. Nice. So it is. Oh, now we have photos. Isn't this just a virtual council estate? No page today, cleaning up the site. You even get like kind of like a mini like diary almost. AWOL. The next week. More tidying up. Ooh, we're experimenting a little bit now with ASCII art. With making shapes. With different like what's it called? Different letters, different glyphs almost. Now we're playing with links a little bit. Oh, there's flash animation. We can't see it anymore. So sad, we can't see it anymore, but there's a flash animation here at one point. A drawing to describe loop in Josh before we started it. A free day. Explaining loop. Oh my gosh. This real... Oh my god, was it like a video player? This icon just like brought me back. What the heck? Yeah, it looks like it was just kind of like an experimentation with things like HTML. You're so fun. There's an art website called hell.com which had no public access. An invitation and password to see the new exhibition. During the opening, we copied the whole show and published it in our website without restrictions. Our action upset hell.com and led to a cease and desist request. While hell.com recently ceased to exist, our version remained visible ever since. Shall we visit? Whoa. Even just the, oh, not found? I was unable to find what you're looking for? About? Oh, how about exhibitions? Oh my gosh. Oh no, this is for 2025. I was gonna say like this looks AI generated, but because I was like, it looks like the cat. It is the cat. Interesting, interesting. Well, now they're delving into AI. This is what I mean. This is what I want. Real player jump scare, exactly. Let's go back. Let's go to potatoland.shredder. What this is. I saw the Space Jam website. Yeah. That's an excellent example of what's called like Web 1.0, of like making these personal websites with like kind of no restrictions on like what websites were supposed to look like back then, because there was no expectation. It was like kind of the Wild West of the you know what? I can't use Shredder.1.1, or can I? Let me do something. Wait. What the heck? King of the internet, Riot. Okay, I guess Shredder like basically just like gives you a website and it like messes around with it. But I think a better example, especially if we're talking about like the Space Jam and kind of like this Web 1.0, is this one, Cameron's World. We did look at this one time when we did kind of like a deep dive on Web 1.0, but it was like kind of this era of like, once again, there were no guidelines with how you're supposed to like design your website. So a lot of times like people's personal GeoCities and Angelfire like personal websites were just like a collection of their favorite things. And oftentimes that was like different assets from different websites. So like take a look at this like aquarium where like you have like some 3D graphics. Some of these are clip art. Some of these like they all have different styles to them. Some of them are just like a picture, like a film photography, you know. So like it's so cool because like there are no rules. Like whatever you like, you just put it on. If you know how to code a table in HTML, you do that, you know. Welcome, dear internet person. Please enjoy at your own risk, you know, like the skull with the trumpet, you know. Ooh, spooky spider. Oh my god, the windows within the windows within the windows. The Ricky Martin world with the little carrot. That is not a dolphin. Fish. Dolphin. You got me there. I could have sworn. This isn't a dolphin either if we look at it. You know what? Dolphin is mentioned here like multiple times. Like here, dolphin. Tag yourself, I'm the dolphin. Dianork, hello. We're looking at the old web. We're looking at CameronsWorld.net. Hello, Dianork. Oh my gosh, look at this one with the anime stuff. Like, this is bringing me back to, like, shrines, you know? Like, shipping shrines. Oh my god, look at this one. You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, round, round. But this is like, oh, like, you know, add this graphic to your page if you ship Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune. Put this here if you ship Matt from Digimon with Tai from Digimon. Mr. Potato Head. Oh my gosh. Is there a bear here? Yes, there's a bear. There's another bear. I didn't see the other dolphin. She said Uranus. No. Oh, and even like other languages, right? Great for visiting. Welcome, the end. God, this is great. A love letter to the internet of old. You gotta love it. But yeah, like this is kind of like what we were talking about of like the charm of it is like kind of how it doesn't follow any of the rules that we know nowadays of like, oh, if you want a website, you got to make sure that the font is readable. You got to make sure that like you don't have like jarring colors with jarring fonts. You want to make sure you're not using Comic Sans because it doesn't look professional, even though it is. Comic Sans, by the way, is dyslexia friendly. Did you guys know that? Comic Sans is a dyslexia friendly font. But yeah, that is all an example of internet art. We already have another ad break coming up. That's crazy. We are finishing up, so we are going to finish up with some miscellaneous aesthetics that we did talk about in the past, including what my current avatar is based off of. So we'll probably finish off on that, and then we'll do a round of Time Guesser, and we'll probably call it from there. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in... Let's do the cub corner so you guys can still listen to the cool 90s beats. Oh no, that's right, my legs. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit, and then we'll end off pretty soon. But I think you're moving too fast. Don't go chasing waterfalls, Cubs. Don't do it. Chasing waterfalls, just stick to the rivers and the lakes like you used to. Just stay out of my river. Those are my fish. Have it your way or nothing at all, but I think you're moving too fast. What if the waterfall owes me money? Then no, it's okay. It's okay. You get the money first. You're gonna get the money first, and then if you want a little treat, if you go upstream, that's where the salmon are trying to spawn, and they jump up. If you open your mouth at the top of the waterfall, it actually jumps into your mouth. That's a little hack for you guys. You're welcome. Alright, let's go ahead and wrap up this decade study, shall we? So the last thing that we're going to be talking about is some miscellaneous aesthetics that I found on the aesthetics wiki. We did cover most of these, actually. All of these, now that I think about it, because of my new model. Oh my gosh, do you guys know what I like? You guys want to know what I like? Okay, let me, give me a second. Just give me a second. Big cubs and I cannot lie. You other birds can't deny. Just love sulfuric acid. Alright, let's talk about some miscellaneous aesthetics, shall we? Global Village Coffee House. So this is a very, like, both 80s and 90s aesthetic that a lot of us might be familiar with. So, marked by a handicrafted aesthetic. So if you look at these examples over here, you have some, like, loose lines. Print-like coloring, as in, like, the color doesn't always, like, align to the lines itself. It almost looks like it, like, bleeds outside of the lines or into the lines. Like, take a look at, like, this pant leg over here. You still see a little bit of the yellow from outside of the pants. And a little bit of the brown from the pants even, like, emanates off of it as well. So it's kind of meant to look like it's, like, a watercolor that has, like marker markings, like, to like, define the lines itself. Earthy tones, and then there's actually a really good deep dive here. I'll give you guys a link as well. Let's copy this. Oh, I guess I can't copy paste that. Here, let me just, I won't play it on here, but I will link it to you guys if you guys want to check it out yourself. It's a really cool deep dive into, like, Global Village Coffee House that I definitely, like, recommend that you guys check out for yourselves. But he kind of talks about how you saw this aesthetic a lot in cafes because there was this sense of, like, welcoming and wanting you to linger and buy another coffee, right? Like, they wanted this place to be comfortable to you so that you would stay a little while, right? But eventually with the 2000s and 2010s, the cafe became less of a place to, like, linger in and more of, like, get your coffee and get out, you know, because we need to service more people. So you did see a loss of this style, but we did also do our own kind of deep dive in it and made our own attempt at Global Village Coffee House with this. So as you can see, like, the shapes don't always match the lines, almost like kind of like a print or like a screen print in a way. There's, like, a lot of kind of, like, organic lines. The colors are usually pretty vibrant. I could have made the tones a little bit more earthy, but yeah, that's something that, like, we were just kind of playing around with. So that's Global Village Coffee House. And then another that might be well known, especially if you grew up in the 90s, is Utopian Scholastic. And then there's also the more, like, refined and adult version called Frasierbane, kind of named after Frasier and Urbane. But Utopian Scholastic you would see more so on things like class textbooks, educational media, things like encyclopedias. And this one is usually features, like, a collage of different things, because especially if we're talking about, like, educational material, this is supposed to show, like, oh, these are the different things that you can learn from this program or from this textbook. You can learn about music, you can learn about Napoleon, you can learn about space, seasons, Nelson Mandela, American history, biology, chemistry, atomic structure, ancient civilizations, frogs, art history. You got the Mona Lisa over here. You even have, like, architecture. So, like, they were kind of mixing together all of these different educational topics together in kind of a collage to show, like, oh, these are the possibilities of things that you can learn, not just with our product but in general, you know. Here's another example. This is more so grounded in like biology and environmentalism, but there are things like computers and keyboards and mice to kind of like show like the accessibility of it. And in these books, the Dorling Kinsersley, the eyewitness books, these are excellent examples of that, because like you can see like this book is just about ancient Egypt, but you could see like mummies and artwork and the bust of Queen Nefertiti and like different things about ancient Egyptian cultures. Like here you have a shark, but instead of just the shark, you also see like its teeth. You also see like this necklace with like, you know, a shark tooth in it. You see like different things associated with sharks. So it's supposed to be like, we're not just learning about this, we're learning about everything associated with that topic, you know? So I think that's pretty neat. And this is an example of Fraser Bane, where it's a little bit more of like a refined touch to it, where it has that Fraser aesthetic of like, it's not just any old like random things that you collage together. It's like intellectual, or things that are like associated with like intellectualism. So like stringed instruments, classical music, photographs, but they're black and white, you know? Technology, birds, instruments, you know, it's basically a lot of collage. There's also a couple of like deep dives into that as well. And then the last one that we'll go over is actually what my model is based off of. This is something called the Carson DeLosa style. So similar to the above, this style is commonly associated with education and gives off a friendly vibe with a lot of rounded shapes and diverse multicultural figures. So like this is, I just grabbed this from like the aesthetics wiki, but like this is peak Carson DeLosa. I didn't know that it had a name until very recently when I was doing this research, but you might have seen similar stylings in your school. Maybe, right? I like this one because it has bears and it has every single month of the year, right? So look, it's an ice skating bear, it's a Valentine's bear, it's an Irish bear, it's a spring bear, a summer bear, a patriotic bear. This fit is so 90s. Speaking of 90s fashion, take a look at this, right? But also, why the toes out, you know? Why? Yeah, like, if you want to kind of identify Fraser Bane, usually it's the face. The face usually has, like, the eyes that are very close together. You have this, like, big, wide, oblong smile, round heads. What I found out when I was making my like this model that you see on the screen right now is that like also there is shading, but it's kind of limited, and it's almost like what's called pillow shading, where it's kind of just like the edges. It's not really kind of meant to be like realistic shading at all, just kind of like very, very simplified shading. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. Yeah, they exaggerate a lot of features while like minimizing others. So for example, the eyes are pretty small, but things like the toes and the mouth are usually pretty big. If anything, you're the odd bear out for wearing clothes. Shoes even? They're all wearing clothes. Like, what about these guys? They're wearing shoes, right? This one's wearing chanclas, wearing chinelas, right? If anything, they're the weirdos. Having the beans out like that. Disgraceful. But yeah, like, I picked these because, like, for me, they're very, like, 90s, but also because, like, a lot of them are kind of grounded in either education or this idea of, like, comfort, nostalgia. Because of that kind of, like, 20 to 30 year cycle, like, the 90s and the 2000s are experiencing their kind of, like, this is, like, the decade of, like, nostalgia for those times. So these do bring me comfort, especially as a 90s kid, as I've been mentioning once or twice or thrice or many times throughout the stream. But yeah, that is our deep dive into the 90s. We talked about politics, world politics, advances in technology, your beep beep. Let's see, scandals. I didn't even talk about Michael Jordan, but here he is. Pop culture, music, TV shows, cartoons, famous ones at that. Little Binka being terminally online at the tender young age of, I don't know, 7 or something. What else? We talked about fashion and how the Power Rangers did it the best. Grunge. Lots of grunge, preppy, hip-hop. Bean-shaped cars. Remember the bean-shaped cars? Different art movements that kind of like went off of like conceptual minimalism, super flat, early internet art, and miscellaneous comforting aesthetics. So that's the 90s. That's the 90s. 2 weeks from now, we're going to be covering the 2000s, and a lot of the stuff is probably going to translate over with its own touches. There was one aesthetic that I left out of here, and it's Y2K. Now, you would think that, like, Y2K didn't come about until the actual, like, 2000s, but, like, you did see inklings of it in the 90s. So, but I'm going to cover that more so when we do our deep dive on the 2000s. So with that, let me go ahead and stop raids, and then we're going to go ahead and test our knowledge with Time Guesser. So give me a second to navigate to that. Matthew says bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. So all right, let's do it. Let's do Time Guesser, and let's see. Hopefully we'll get something from the 90s, but if not, we now have done research on many of the decades. The only ones that we're missing are 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, 1900s, and 1910s. So I think we have a good chance of seeing something familiar. So let's go ahead and do it. Time Guesser. The sun. Oh my gosh, what is this? Nordic flag, right? This looks... No, it's not Nordic. Look, it's the British flag. So here, is that the flag of England? At first glance, this looks Nordic, but what does this say? I can't even read. Adams? I think that says Adams. Wait, Kalustaya? That sounds like it could be Nordic, because there's a British flag over here. And then this could be like the English flag, but it could easily be like a Nordic flag. The only thing is... No, wait, Finland? Because if you think of like Norway and Iceland, they both have extra lines. The ones that are just like a cross are Sweden and Denmark, but they both are more so like a darker color surrounding a lighter color. This is overall a lighter color with a darker color making up the cross. So that's why I'm like, maybe it's the English flag, but I also wonder if it's the Finnish flag. Could this be Finland? Time-wise, if we're looking at the fashion, flat caps, curls... this is a lot of people. What the heck? This is kind of scary. There's something about this one over here. Kalustaya, right? That feels like it would be like Nordic. And then this looks like it could be Adams, but then what does this say? Something like maybe Zenith? Zenith K Kalio? Right? I feel like, even though there's a British flag, I feel like this isn't the UK. You say 1920? They do this older woman over here has like a little like fur something. 1920-ish. Yeah, the amount of hats does make me think that it's like on the earlier side. It's definitely not like anything past 1950s. So I want to say like, yeah, 1920s, maybe even like 1910s. I want to say like late 1910s. Told me the world is gonna roll me. It's just the country that I'm not 100% sure. Wait, that looks like the American flag. So maybe this is... Wait, there's more text here. My something... It's very hard to read. But I don't know. Something about the text makes me want to say... Finland. Yeah, the hats, right? Oh, you're right, the hats. Because they are fedoras and flat caps. So yeah... Let's say 19... it might be 1930s as well. Okay, the women have curls. That's what I'm noticing too. And a lot more like curls and short hair. The curls are making me think 40s, you know? What if we say like late 30s? Let's say late 40s, and let's say Finland, Helsinki. And let's just see. Nice, it is Helsinki. Okay, cool. Finns attending a peace celebration organized by country's left-wing parties honoring Allied victory at the end of World War II. Until 1944, Finland fought alongside Germany in the invasion of the USSR. Oh, 1945. Okay. So it was a little bit later. It was something about the curls that was like, I know curls are typically 1940s. But I'm always like hesitant with the 1940s because it's like, oh, 1940s is typically like wartime, you know? So like, it's like, oh, like, you know, depending on the vibe of the picture, does it look like a wartime picture? But okay, not too bad. Not too bad. Let's see. The Daily Mail. Transatlantic Air Radio? Transatlantic, so it could be US or UK? All that glitters is gold. 5.5 hours, Navy something is rare air. We're breathing rare air. Oh, look at the symbol. I think that's pounds. I think this is, this is British. I was gonna say too many meant to be wartime, but it was just after the war. Right? Right? I always get tripped up on that. Whenever it comes to 1940 stuff, I always get tripped up on it. Right? I'm like, there's too many guys here. Like, I don't know if it's a wartime. The car is geometric in the background. The fender is fully incorporated in the shell. The hair is giving 70s of this younger person over here. Let me take a look at what the cars look like back then. You're a rock star. Get show on and get paid. All that glitters is gold. Shooting stars. Yeah, this looks like it could be 60s. Gold, only shooting stars. Late 60s. Late 60s kind of have that, some of them do have that double, like, headlight thing going on over here. Let's say 60, 69, nice. And let's say London. You and me, meant to be together. Nice, spot on. And it is, it's London, but it's like the other side of the river. Father and son riding scooters toward the finish line at the Daily Mail Transatlantic Air Race, a two-way race between the Empire State Building in New York and the Post Office Tower in London to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first transatlantic crossing by John Alcock and Arthur Brown. Nice. 1967. Nice. Okay, this looks contemporary. Are they walking a mile in her shoes? I kind of remember this. This feels 2010s. Roy Thompson Hall, be the first to know. Please stop explaining. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Does it say, wait, the something of... This kind of looks like it spells out Toronto, right? Dear Evan Hansen, this feels hella like late 2010s, right? Like 2018, 2017? Let's say like 2017. I don't remember when, like, I never watched Dear Evan Hansen, but I definitely, like, heard of it. That sign looks like it says Toronto, right? Where's the city? When I saw this, I thought this would be, like, East Coast or something. But, like, this looks like it spells out Toronto. I don't know if that's just wishful thinking, but, like... But I have never seen this, like, architecture before. So I'm just kind of taking a guess. So please stop explaining. Let's just say Toronto. Canada. 2 years off, it was 2019, but it was Toronto. Men wearing high heels participating in a walk a mile in her shoes. I knew it. I knew it. Event in Toronto, Canada. More than 500 participants took part in the annual event aimed to raise awareness on domestic and gender-based violence. This feels very 2010s, you know? Of people caring about other people's problems. People having empathy feels very 2010s. All right, Albert Volk Company, House Wreckers. Okay, this looks very old. Oh, an overturned buggy. This looks pretty... What do you want to say? 1910s? Let me look at my book of art design, of car design. It looks like a buggy, right? This could be 1900. No, actually. This could be 1900s. I'm looking at the car designs of the 1900s. It kind of looks more like a little like buggy like this. It's overturned too. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's like. Looks like a famous statue for sure, right? I want to say like East Coast America, right? First vehicle looking. Don't speak. Like I want to say East Coast Bear America, but like I'm not super confident, but I don't know, it's given that energy. Something about that statue, right? And it's also like kind of neoclassic architecture as well. That's another thing that kind of like makes me think like East Coast. Is New York the building? This one? It feels like it, right? Like there's something about like the neoclassical architecture that's like giving that. Let's put it in like the like in this part. Somewhere here. Oh my god, it's from MGS2. Can't remember the name. Something like, it's not the Flatiron Building. That's so funny though. Jack, do you know what day it is? Oh no, not 90. I was about to say 1962. No, not 1962. Let's say 1907. 1920. It was New York though. The crowd gathered at Wall Street, Manhattan, the scene of a terrorist bombing. The blast killed 30 people immediately and another 8 later from fatal wounds. The perpetrators were never identified. A terrorist bombing in the 1920s? Yeah, the ending of MGS2. Jack, do you know what day it is? Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this looks like a memorial. Zidowski? That looks Polish. Time-wise, I feel like 70s? Oh, you people, can't you see? Can't you see? It's affecting our reality. This feels Polish. You can make it right, and that makes you larger than life. I want to say 70s, maybe early 80s, but let's do 79. Are you thinking 90s? Oh, there is a flannel. Wait, is that really a flannel though, or is that just like kind of like a tartan design? A part of me wants to say like 70s. I don't know why though. Like, because like a lot of the things that we looked in fashion, it's definitely like more so like US and like Western Europe. So I don't know what kind of fashion they probably like through osmosis. I feel like the fashion would be similar-ish in other countries. But you might be right. I don't know. I kind of want to say like late 70s to 80s. I know that the hair, I feel like it's something about like this hair, like the bowl cut, that's making me think like 70s, 80s, but well, let's check out 79. Let's check it out. 4 years, it was 80s. Families gathered at the monument to the ghetto heroes in Warsaw to touch the floral tributes left by Pope John Paul II during his visit in June 1983. Ugh, dang it. I had like an air bubble. The monument honors the Jewish insurgents who fought during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising during the German occupation. Okay, cool. So, okay, that is not cool. But like the fact that we were only 4 years off, not too bad. And we scored into the 40Ks. Let's freaking go. We're getting better, methinks. Also, did anyone that play Strands today? Did you guys know like some of those words? Because there was one word that I was like, I don't know that word. You can make it right, and that Alright, cool. I posted my score. Yo, Zako, hello. You're just in time for the mosh pit. We're actually gonna end soon. Climb the height of a New York bridge. 'Twas on a dare at a punk show. Oh, okay, cool. Well, we're gonna, speaking of a punk show, we're gonna go ahead and mosh right now. We're gonna mosh. Let's see what we're moshing to. Let's mosh to something from the 90s. Or 90s sounding. Can't you see how your love's affecting our reality? Time we're down, you can make it right. Fruitiger Arrow. Can we do Backstreet Boys? What the heck was that? Okay, I'm not even gonna... I'm not even gonna try with that one. Okay. Let's do 90s metal. 90s new metal. Should we do Limp Bizkit? It's just one of those days. We could also do running in the 90s. We do running in the 90s. That is very 90s, you know. Alright guys, for any new students here, we have an end of stream tradition, which is our end of stream mosh pit. All you gotta do is once you start playing the once I play the music and you start hearing the music, go ahead and start spamming your favorite emotes in the chat. And I'm gonna let your little stream avatars fight each other. There's no correlation between how many emotes you spam and who wins the mosh pit. It's RNG and it's not rigged. Have those songs right. The thing is we did listen to the Digimon soundtrack a couple times in past streams. So I feel like let's do running in the 90s for now, and then we'll listen to that soundtrack again next time. It's my time to rant about the end of American optimism. Alright, let's go ahead and do running in the 90s and get to moshing. Let's do it. Ooh, I like this. Alright, let's see. Who are we raiding into? Hell yeah. The 90s. I'm just running in the 90s. In the 90s. Running in the 90s. Okay, I found out who we're going to raid into. She hoards the health packs. No. Oh no, I don't think do we have enough time for another round? We do. We do have enough time for another round. How about that? How about them beans? I didn't mean to hoard them. I didn't mean to. It's not rigged though. In the 90s. See, now you guys are ganging up on me. In the 90s. There's only 3 of us. Well, that just increases the odds. That just ramps up the odds. I'm just running in the 90s. This could be hella rigged. No. Ah, not the med pack right behind Peg Skull. It's Zako. See? It's not rigged. I keep telling you guys. I keep telling you guys. Nice. Good job, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this deep dive into the 90s. And I hope that for Time Guesser, whenever there's a 90s pick, you'll be able to spot it in a pinch. Alright, GG! Alright, the last stream for this week is actually a watch along on the Discord. We're going to be watching American Tail tomorrow at 11 a.m. PT. And it'll be on the Binka Stage channel. Alright, so I'll see you guys then. We're going to go ahead and raid into Yuki ENVT. She is currently playing Iron Lung. I don't know anything about it, but I do love Yuki. So we're going to go ahead and raid into them. Thanks for the stream. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys so much. So from here, I hope you guys have a good morning, afternoon, and evening. And as always, I'll see you guys when I see you guys. Bye-bye. We raid.